of Half Moon Bay, California. May I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Rarbeck?
Here.
Councilmember Brownstone?
Here.
Vice Mayor Jimenez?
Here.
Mayor Penrose?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. We will now have the Pledge of Allegiance. So if everyone would stand. Okay, we're going to start with proclamations and presentations. And our first is Public Works Week proclamation. Would our Public Works staff please come to the front? Whereas Public Works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, and service that are of vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities, and to the public health, high quality of life, and well-being of the people of Half Moon Bay. I'm not going to read the rest of it. Now, therefore, be it known that the City Council of the City of Half Moon Bay do hereby designate the week May 21-27 as National Public Works Week. City Council urges all citizens to join with representatives of the American Public Works Association, Canada Public Works Association, and government agencies in activities, events, and ceremonies designed to pay tribute to our public works professionals, engineers, managers, and employees, and to recognize the substantial contributions they make to protecting our national health, safety, and quality of life. Thank you all. And could our Public Works Director say a few words?
Thank you, Mayor. Members of council, members of the public, I just want to thank you for this recognition, and really just want to say kudos to the wonderful folks in the Public Works Department in Half Moon Bay. We have some amazing staff and some really dedicated individuals, and I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for them. So thank you all. Really appreciate it.
Okay, our next proclamation is Commute.org Community Transportation Benefits Program presentation. Is that happening?
Yes, Maggie's she's on Zoom.
Great, thank you.
Hey there, can any of you hear me?
Try again, Krista. Krista, try again.
Hey there, can you hear me now?
Can you guys hear her? No. Give us just 1 second here, Krista.
Thanks, Jessica.
We're not seeing anything on our monitor.
Yeah.
Testing. I can, folks who are joining online can hear me, it sounds like.
Well, it's supposed to come.
Yeah. Thank you for your patience, Krista.
No problem.
Yeah.
As you can see, we're not IT, so thank you just for one more moment.
Mark? Easier, I can dial in by phone too, just so you know.
I think it's just our sound system, but thank you. Krista, could you try one more time, please?
Testing, testing. Testing.
We can kind of hear you, but we're working on better audio.
Sorry, folks. We're working it.
You can hear us, right?
Would you like for us to go to city manager's updates while we're trying to work out the technology?
Yeah, we could do that, or we could do Mid-Coast Council.
Well, I
Let's-
think,
Krista, could you try one more time?
Okay, same situation with Mid-Coast Council. Okay, why don't we go to,
we have one more shot here.
Okay, Krista, we're going to try one more thing, and then I think we might pause on this and move on to the next item while we figure out IT issues.
That is fair.
Yeah. Thank you for so many tests, Krista. Could you do one more, please?
Absolutely.
You don't want to know. Okay, Krista, thank you for your patience. We're going to jump ahead to the city manager's update while we figure out the IT issues. Thank you.
We do that, why don't we do it in order? I'll do mayor's announcements, just because it comes next on the agenda. On May the 18th, there's going to be a fundraiser for the Coastside Victims Fund with... It was canceled. Ah, thank you. That's not great. Okay. I'm going to end it there, and we'll go to city managers' updates.
How about the farm summit on Saturday?
It's not, is it this Saturday?
Yeah. Farm Worker Summit this Saturday?
Oh, right. The Farm Workers Summit is this Saturday at the Boys and Girls Club gym on Kelly Avenue, Kelly Street. I'm not sure which it is right there, but across from here.
Starting at 1.
And that'll begin at 1 o'clock. And everybody should be welcome to come. We're going to have lots of guest speakers. Also, don't forget the Saturday Farmers Market. And now we'll move on to city managers' updates to council.
Mayor, the next item is the report out from recent closed session meetings, but it's fine because we have not had one recently, so nothing to report out.
Okay, thank you.
So I'll take this one very quickly. So just to save the date for Saturday, June 10th, 12 to 4 for the annual Emergency Prep Fair. We are looking forward to hosting this for the first time since I think 2019, and we have a lot of partners coming and set up for that, and hope to see community members, and there's still space for groups and that are interested in participating beyond just visiting and talking to the other community members. And more information to come, and Colleen and Joe Butcher and our shop are working together, and we're very excited about the event. So thanks.
Good evening. This is just a quick note for attendees who may have been interested in the home occupation and short-term vacation rental ordinance item. It's been continued to a date certain, the next city council meeting on June 6th. This ordinance was conditionally certified by the Coastal Commission in March 2023, and city council is now needing to review the modifications per the Coastal Commission's action. And this was agendized, and we did notice, and we needed a little bit more time. So anybody on Zoom or here who was coming for that item, please know that you can come back in a couple weeks. Thank you.
Thank you, Jill.
There we go. Okay. And good evening, Mayor, City Council. Veronica Vostenak, Public Works Programs Manager, and I am here to give you a couple updates on some of the energy projects that we've been working on. I know that many of you are aware that we partnered with the school district to try to assess some opportunities for solar and battery storage projects. We've decided together to be part of Peninsula Clean Energy's power purchase agreement. They're round 2 that's underway right now. They're doing some initial feasibility studies, and they've decided to move forward with some city facilities, City Hall and the parking lot, and the sheriff's substation. So they're assessing those more specifically, and we're going to have a meeting with them within the next couple months to learn a little bit more information, and whether we will move forward onto the final document that will be sent out for proposals. We also have been selected by the San Mateo County Energy Watch program to take part in their methane gas inventory pilot program. So what they're doing is they're looking at all of the city facilities, identifying the methane gas appliances that are installed in those, taking note of the model and everything that you may need to electrify those facilities. So they have interns with the San Mateo County, San Mateo Community College District. They came a couple weeks ago, and we should get a report from them in about 6-8 weeks with some information on how we may electrify, and we'll have a really good solid list of those appliances. The last update I wanted to give you all is we're moving forward with a preliminary engineering study with a firm called Willdan. This is a process that's being done for the city free of charge. This is a fairly common, a lot of firms provide this sort of study, and basically it will be looking at all of our energy programs and goals holistically, so looking at the remaining solar and storage facility opportunities, including the Ted Adcock, since all of our shading issues have gone away after the storms. But they'll also be looking at any energy efficiency upgrades, EV charging for future fleet vehicles, and then also looking more specifically at electrifying our facilities and looking at all of that, doing utility analysis and identifying grants, financing, and incentives that are available. There are a lot of firms that do this, and we selected to go forward with Willdan because they have that really solid public finance arm. So we're really looking forward. There's a lot of programs out there, so they're going to help us look at what projects are feasible and how we may look to pay for them moving forward. So we've been doing a lot of work in this space, and we just wanted to give you all an opportunity to know what we're doing and answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Veronica. I'm not quite sure about the Peninsula Clean Energy Project.
I think it's your
Is it this mic?
Oh, the interpretation.
I'm sorry, could you explain what the ultimate goal of that is, what the point of it is?
Yeah, so they are working with other cities, so most of the cities in San Mateo County and then Los Banos and all of the special districts in those areas, and looking to identify public facilities in that sphere that could install solar or battery projects, and looking at putting that together in a big package to make it attractive for investors, and ultimately it would save on our energy costs. We would negotiate as a group all of those projects together. We would negotiate a lower amount for our electricity costs.
Great, thank you.
No problem.
Got it. Thank you, Veronica. Anybody else have questions? If not, we will move on to public forum. Anyone
Mayor, I'm
who-
gonna ask for a 10-minute recess. Let tech try to figure out whether we can deal with this. We have an issue since this meeting was advertised and noticed as a hybrid meeting. While folks can hear, they cannot at this point speak and communicate with us and provide that input. And so we're trying to figure out whether we can make this work, find an alternate way, or have to postpone this meeting until we can figure out our hybrid situation here for that point because of the noticing that was done.
Great, thank you. We will recess for 10 minutes.
Joanne Rakowski, could I ask you to just try speaking so we could hear you on the loudspeaker?
Hello, can you actually hear me?
Yeah, can you say just a few more words to see if we have figured out this tech issue? Thank you. Thank you for being our guinea pig.
My name's Joanne Rokowski.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm going to mute you again, but I appreciate you helping us out. Thank you so much, Joanne.
All right, thank you.
Krista, we're going to do a test with you also. Could you please try one more time to see if we can get your presentation going?
Sure. Can you hear me now?
So much better. Thank you for your patience.
Oh, good. Of course.
Just give us a few moments here.
Okay, we are now going to hear from commute.org.
All right. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes, thank you, Krista.
Yes, for me, it's the Community Transportation Benefits Program that you're expecting to hear from, right? Okay, great. Excellent. Thank you so much for accommodating this remote presentation tonight. I'm Krista Cassidy. I'm a project manager and transportation equity planner with HNTB. We are the policy program manager for the San Mateo County Express Lanes Joint Powers Authority. And I'm really honored to be here tonight to present to you an informational item about the San Mateo 101 Express Lanes Community Transportation Benefits Program. The intention of this presentation is to increase awareness about this new program and to answer any questions you might have or listen to any feedback that may come up as you're listening to the presentation. Next slide, please. So the 101 Express Lanes project is really the basis for the Community Transportation Benefits Program. The Express Lanes themselves were born out of this recognition that the congestion on the US 101 was continuing to worsen as employment and housing and population growth was increasing, and that there was really little incentive to rideshare on the 101 in San Mateo County. So the Joint Powers Authority pursued the 101 Express Lanes project, opening up the southern segment last February and the northern segment just a couple of months ago. Next slide. So just to level set on what express lanes are, they are lanes that can be used by buses, vans, and carpools with 3 or more people, and they can use the lane for free. Carpools with 2 people can receive a discount, and then other drivers can choose to pay. The toll prices themselves are dynamic, and they're displayed on overhead signs to let you know how much it is for you to enter the lane. And they require the Fast Track Flex toll tag in order to receive the full benefits of the lane. And so that's the toll tag that allows you to toggle between 1, 2, or 3 people, 3 or more people in your car. Next slide. So there were concerns related to the Express Lanes project from the Joint Powers Authority related to equity. General toll equity concerns about unbanked and underbanked folks being able to use the lanes, technological barriers related to having to have a toll transponder in order to use the lane, and then an overlying concern about the potential for more benefits from this lane to accrue to higher income drivers. Next slide. And so with that, the JPA commissioned an equity study from Arup and Estelano Advisors with the intention to study what an equity program could look like that invests toll revenue to provide meaningful mobility benefits to historically underserved communities in San Mateo County. We wanted this program to be flexible and to be able to evolve and change over time, especially at the time really living through the pandemic, and the communities that we were hoping to benefit through this program are being hit hardest by COVID. We wanted to acknowledge that what works in 2023 may look very different from what worked in 2019 or what will work in 2025. So want this program to be dynamic in order to meet those changing needs. Next slide. So with that, the real cornerstone of our approach to the equity study was community engagement. And so that we did that in a couple of different ways, 5 different ways here. So first we interviewed community leaders from around the county to really understand initially what the community transportation challenges were. We implemented a community partner program in which we paid nonprofit organizations in the county, community-based organizations, to do outreach on our behalf and to gather feedback for us. We took our recommended program alternatives out on a community roadshow to get feedback and have collaborative discussions with folks in the community. We held public meetings. And then the entire equity study was really guided by an advisory committee with representatives from local jurisdictions and other advocates. And so what we found in that sort of initial phase of community engagement, where we were really focused on understanding community transportation needs, is that we heard that public transportation is unreliable, that the cost of transportation is too high, and that there's too much traffic, and that people really felt like toll subsidies to help low-income drivers use the lanes would be helpful, that discounted or free transit passes would be helpful, and that more frequent and reliable public transportation was a big deal too. So we were able to take a step back, take all of this feedback into account and really shape a couple of different program alternatives, which we brought back out to the public for their input. And in that process, we learned that the express lanes benefit and transit benefits had the most support, and that most participants really wanted to see a hybrid of these two benefits come out of the program. And the last thing we heard was that the amount that we had been floating with in our outreach of $50 for a benefit was too low to be meaningful. Next slide. So we made some adjustments to our recommendations based on that additional outreach on the implementation of the program, and we increased the amount of the benefit. We raised our income threshold, which I'll talk to you about in a minute, around eligibility, and then we confirmed a partnership with local community groups to actually administer the program. So what you're seeing here is really the result of that additional outreach. Where we landed was that if you are an eligible individual in San Mateo County, you can choose between receiving $100 on a Clipper card or $100 on a Fast Track Flex tag. Let's see here, and next slide. Now we'll go to the next slide. So I mentioned eligibility. This is a benefit that's distributed at the individual level. And so to be eligible for the program, you have to be a resident of San Mateo County, age 18 or older, have an individual income at or below 60% of the county's area median income. And so that's $78,300. And then the last thing is that we really wanted to lower the barrier to entry to this program as much as possible. So if somebody is already receiving a benefit through the Core Services Agency, they are eligible for our program as well. So it's just, so that's one other eligibility pathway. Next slide. The program is, there's the oversight and governance of the overall program is done by the policy program manager, which is my team at HNTB, and then the San Mateo County Express Lanes Joint Powers Authority. And then Samaritan House is the program administrator. And so they administer the program with 7 other core service agencies as well. So somebody can go anybody who's eligible can enroll at their local core service agency listed on the slide here. Next slide. So since the program started last April through, the data we have is through March 31st of this year, we've distributed around 1,700 benefits to folks in the county, with the vast majority of participants selecting the Clipper benefit at 83% of all the benefits selected. Next slide. We see that the income level of program participants is the biggest representation is at 60% of folks who report having no income, and the next group of folks at 31% reporting that they make $25,000 a year or less. Something that's just interesting to flag here, and maybe isn't a surprise for this group, but that we had set the income threshold really high. In recognition of the high cost of living in San Mateo County, and we really aren't seeing a lot of uptake at the higher levels of our sort of income groups here. Next slide. So the majority of program participants, 31%, live in South San Francisco, followed by 22% in Daly City, 12% in San Mateo County. I think we see about 13% across the coast. And we're seeing some recent upticks in places like East Palo Alto, which has 5% of our participants. And then we're really glad to see other uptick in places like Redwood City and North Fair Oaks, where we know that there's a need. Next slide. The majority of program participants at 47% are Hispanic, 26% are Asian or Asian American, 12% are white, 8% are Black, African American, or African, and then we have some smaller representation here with the Native Hawaiian or Pacific Islander and multiracial populations. Next slide. And then finally, when we ask during the program enrollment process how participants will use their benefit, Participants most frequently say that they're going to use the benefit to get food or run other household errands, to access healthcare, and to get to work. Next slide. So like I mentioned, the purpose of me being here today with all of you is really to make sure that there is an awareness in Half Moon Bay about our program. And so this is part of the outreach that we're doing now, is really trying to get the word out. 1,700 participants is great, but we know that the need is bigger. And so we just want to make sure that everybody who is eligible for this benefit knows about the program and knows how to enroll and can get the benefit in hand. So some things that we've been doing in addition to presenting to local councils and boards like yours is developing flyers and other printed materials for the Core Service Agencies Network to have at their locations. We've been engaging community partners like the Labor Union, the Community College District, and others by developing these partner toolkits that have drafted up social media posts, some sort of plug and play newsletter articles, blog posts, things like that, all translated into Spanish and simplified Chinese as well. And then working with our transportation partners at Clipper, Fast Track, Commute.org, 511.org to identify opportunities to do cross promotion on their social channels or websites. And then finally, we're going to be pursuing partnerships with community-based organizations around the county to see how they can help us spread the word among the communities that they serve. So those are some of the things we're doing right now. We are working on monitoring sort of the effectiveness, the efficacy of these outreach efforts so that we can continue to expand our reach. And then we're actually, now that we've hit a year of the, just completed the pilot year of this program, we're working to do program evaluation and really identify where those areas are for program improvement. So with that, I will stop. Thank you again for having me tonight and welcome any questions or feedback that you might have. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. Council.
Thank you, Krista. I was wondering, could you go back to the slide where you had some of the partner organizations on the coast side? I think it was, yeah, that's it. Great, thanks. So we can add some other partners here. Is that right?
Fantastic. Well, these are the groups through which the program itself is administered. We would love any recommendations you have on organizations we could work with to get the word out.
Yeah, I was thinking Joaquin Alice would be great. What do you think? Yeah.
We are planning to do a presentation for the farm workers with them, but we've been busy the last 2 weeks with the events that are happening and the consulate, Mexican consulate being on Saturday. But we are actually working with Jocelyn.
Okay.
Yeah, to do a presentation for the community in Spanish.
And there might be some other groups as we start getting more traction here in Half Moon Bay, because part of the equity issue is, not everybody can, depending on the jobs they have, can be flexible with being late, right? And some folks, depending on the job you have, you come in a little late, it's not a big deal, but a lot of folks, work jobs where the time factor is really important. So having that access to express lanes can really help anybody who doesn't have that luxury of flex time, et cetera. So I think it's really a great program, an equity program, and allows, as you mentioned at the beginning, it's not a program just for those who, because some of those fees aren't that cheap in those express lanes going down there. So making those express lanes more accessible to everyone is great. And thank you for that presentation, and look forward to seeing more folks from Half Moon Bay having access to it.
Councilmember Ruddock.
Yeah, thank you, Krista. Just one question. So are these like one-time benefits? So you get a Clipper card, you use up the $100, and then it's over, or can people load more benefits? Is it like a one-time or ongoing benefit?
So Currently, thanks for that question. Currently, the way the program is structured is that the Clipper benefit is annual, and you can re-up it from the date which you enrolled in the previous year. And the fast track benefit is a one-time benefit. Although, as I mentioned, we're entering into this program evaluation period where we're thinking about the ways that we can augment and change this program to better meet needs. We've already done some focus groups with folks and have heard that an annual, making that fast track benefit annual would be helpful, especially in places like the coast that may have limited bus access and things like that. So something we're looking into right now.
Great. Thank you.
Anyone else? Yeah, I have one question. How many miles does a Clipper card last?
So something we are looking at right now as part of this program evaluation period that we're just entering into is for how long was that $100 useful to that person who chose the Clipper benefit? So I don't have an answer for you now. It's something that we want to look at further. But it just depends on how many rides they take and on what technology. If they're using it for Caltrain, for BART, for for the bus. So all those things will factor into for how long that $100 is useful to that person.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much. That was a great presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, now we'll move on to Mid-Coast Community Council update.
Greg is not in attendance, so we'll move on.
Oh, moving on to public forum. And this is for anybody who wants to speak to something that is not on the agenda.
Or that is on the consent.
Or that is on the consent. Okay. Right. Okay. Our first speaker is Rocio Avila. Rocio stepped out. We'll go to Vaughn Harrison.
Can you hear me? Yeah. I just wanted to thank you for considering moving forward on affordable housing as fast as possible. And I know you're thinking about the people who survived the shootings, who witnessed the shootings, and our farm workers and many other people who need housing. Thanks.
Thank you, Vaughn. Rocio Avila.
Buenas tardes a todos. Gracias por escucharme. Quiero dar las gracias por estar al pendiente sobre las viviendas.
Thank you for listening and paying attention to us. I want to appreciate for hearing us regarding the housing.
He escuchado muchos comentarios a favor y muchos comentarios en contra, pero sé que nosotros, estando unidos, vamos a lograr que esto se cumpla.
I heard many commentaries, pros and cons, but I know that if we are united, we are going to achieve it.
Ahora quiero pedirles otra cosa. Mientras está esto en proyectos, ¿el concilio puede hacer algo sobre las altas rentas que está pasando ahora aquí?
I want to ask you another thing while this is being developed. Can the council take any action regarding the high rents that we are paying here?
Ustedes una vez dijeron que nos podían ayudar sobre eso, entonces necesitamos que agenden algo sobre las altas rentas, por favor.
We heard once that you were going to deal this issue, and we are asking if you can put in the agenda this issue, this problem.
También miré sobre que se está haciendo la limpieza en la calle Miramontes Point Road. No sé si va a continuar porque la limpieza todavía aún no ha acabado. Todavía hay mucha tierra del otro lado.
I heard that you are doing cleaning in the Miramontes Street. I don't know if it is finished or you are finished, but there is a lot of dust in the other side.
Sabemos que toda la tierra ha causado que personas se hayan caído cuando ha estado mojado y por favor tratar de limpiar para que esto no vuelva a ocurrir porque de todos modos en el tiempo en la mañana está húmedo o a veces el rocío es muy fuerte.
We heard that many people just fall because of the soil is wet, and especially in the morning time because of the dew, the soil is wet and people are falling there.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rocio. Next, we have Rabbi Moshe Hein.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. I appreciate your patience and persistence in dealing with all these issues. I thought there was going to be a lot more discussion tonight about the proposed housing development at the end of Stone Pines, so I was just going to speak to that briefly. Affordable housing contributes to beneficial outcomes in the broader community, including increases in local purchasing power, job creation, and new tax revenues. It has been shown to have a neutral or positive effect on surrounding property values. There is very little evidence, some would say no evidence, of significant reductions in property values that communities fear. What almost all of the research is showing is that there is a range from no impact to a positive impact. Matthew Desmond, a sociologist at Princeton, writes that it is hard to argue that housing is not a fundamental human need. Decent, affordable housing should be a basic right for everyone in this country. The reason is simple: without stable shelter, everything else falls apart. If poverty persists in America, it is not for lack of resources. Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi. Next, we have John Ullum.
Mayor, I have John Ullum on Zoom now, so I'm going to let him speak through Zoom.
I'm sorry?
John Ullum, I believe, left and is joined via Zoom now.
Oh, okay.
So would you like to go through the in-person
Why
and
don't we
then
go through the people that are here first?
Okay, perfect.
And then we'll go to Zoom. Sue Holland.
Good evening, Council, Mayor, and Vice Mayor. I am Sue Holland. I'm a local pastor, resident of Half Moon Bay, and I'm representing Coastside Faith in Action. I wanted to thank you again for all of the hard work that went into the housing element and for your commitment to seeing that affordable housing gets built in Half Moon Bay. Having diversity in all levels of housing is important for our community to be vibrant and healthy. In 2016, Trulia, the online real estate company, they did an analysis of 20 of the nation's least affordable housing markets in the country and found that low-income housing projects in general had no significant effect on home values near the low-income housing projects. There were, however, a few exceptions. In Denver, nearby housing markets actually registered a positive effect on housing values. But in Boston and Cambridge, some nearby homes did see a negative effect. According to their analysis, Trulia discovered that the reason that Boston and Cambridge experienced a decrease was because the low-income housing was all concentrated together in one same area in the same neighborhood, essentially creating a ghetto. On the other hand, in Denver, low-income housing was spread out and integrated into existing neighborhoods. Development of low-income housing and affordable housing is necessary so that all of our neighbors have decent housing and it can be a positive effect if we do it well. And so that's why I'm continually thankful for all the work that Jill and the planning department have done putting together the housing element, because we need to have low-income housing in our area, and if we do it well, it can be a very positive effect for everyone in our community, and especially for the people who really need it very badly. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Sue. Next, we have Leanne Tarling.
Hi, I'm here to speak about the wildlife ordinance. I don't know if it's going to just go straight to a vote, but I would like to, do I need to speak up? Is that better? Okay. I would just like to reiterate, I know there was some opposition last week or 2 weeks ago, and I would just like to reiterate the reasons for doing it is mainly for the health of our local bluff top. And I know we had a lot of people come up and speak about the impacts that they were personally having, and I know we had some opposition about it being a ban and its overreach, and I mean, the state already has laws and ordinances banning it on state property. We don't feed bears, we don't feed, when you go camping, you've got to close up all your food. It just makes sense. When you have people in the community that disrespect that, they disrespect our local environment, then we need to do something. And so I encourage everyone to, or all you council people, please, to vote this very simple, basic ordinance in that's been adopted all over the state. Another thing I just wanted to bring up is that last week, shortly after Mayor Penrose announced the Mental Health Awareness Month, that I felt that one of Mr. Rarbach disparaged our community by assuming that someone had a mental health condition, and I felt that was quite inappropriate and offensive. And I just wanted to register that. Thank you.
Thank you, Leanne. Next, we have Carolina Carbajal.
¿Me pueden escuchar?
Can you listen to me?
Buenas tardes a todos.
Good afternoon to all.
Queremos darle las gracias como comunidad latina por su trabajo.
We want to say thank you as a community, Latin community, for your work.
Así como a la señora, no sé cómo se llama.
The same way as this lady that I don't know her name.
Que se encargó en Jewel. Thank you. Que se encargó junto a las demás personas hacer nuestro proyecto de vivienda.
That was in charge of this project of housing with the rest of the people.
Como ustedes pudieron notar, es un proyecto muy importante que la comunidad está aclamando.
As you can realize, this is a very important project that the community is reclaiming.
Quiero contarles acerca de algo que se da en este mundo.
I want to share something that will happen in this world.
Yo vengo de un país tercermundista.
I come from a third world country.
¿Tercermundista?
Sí.
Okay. En ese país, las personas no sufren de ansiedad ni de depresión.
In that country, people, they don't suffer from anxiety and depression.
Ellos sufren de algo que se llama hambre.
They suffer from something that is called hunger.
En nuestros países hay mucha necesidad.
In our countries, there is a lot of necessities.
en este país que estamos, que es un país de primer mundo,
In this country that we are living in, which is a country of the first world,
hay otras necesidades.
there are other needs.
Nuestras familias en este país necesitan una vivienda.
Our families in this country, they need a house.
Nosotros como padres sufrimos de ansiedad, de depresión.
We as parents, we suffer from anxiety and depression.
A veces no podemos pagar la renta
Sometimes we cannot pay the rent,
o trabajamos muy poco tiempo.
or we work very little time.
No tenemos hambre, nuestros hijos no pasan hambre,
Our kids, our children, they are not suffering hunger,
ni de ropa tampoco.
and also they don't lack clothes,
Pero ellos no cuentan con nosotros porque tenemos que trabajar.
but they don't count with us because we have to work.
En este momento estamos viendo que nuestro país está explotando.
In this country, we are seeing that our country is like exploding.
Muchas personas se han expresado violentamente,
Many people have expressed violently.
han generado violencia contra su mismo vecino.
They have generated violence against their own neighbors.
Se está viendo más inseguridad.
We are seeing more insecurity.
Debemos cuidar más a nuestros niños.
We need to take care more of our kids.
Hay violencia entre ellos.
There is violence between them.
A veces entendemos que es culpa de nosotros los padres.
Sometimes we understand that it is that we as parents are guilty of that.
Los desatendemos por trabajar mucho.
We don't pay attention to them because we have to work a lot.
Tratemos de ayudarnos y generemos un control de la renta.
Try to help each other and generating a rent control.
Nuestro proyecto de vivienda ya está y estamos felices.
Our project of housing, it's already there, and we are very happy for that.
Mientras eso llega, mientras nuestro proyecto se da y se hace en nuestras casas,
While that project is being developed and built and our houses come to reality,
comencemos a trabajar para generar una renta también justa en base a nuestras ganancias.
let's start working in order to get a fair rent according to what our wages are.
Les pedimos también que puedan tocar ese punto también en su agenda.
We ask that you can touch that point also in that agenda.
Una vez escuché en este foro que dijo una persona que nosotros debemos de cuidar a nuestras propias vecinos.
Once I heard in this forum that we have to take care of our own neighbors.
Es nuestro tiempo de cuidar de nosotros mismos también.
It's a time for us to take care of each other.
La comunidad latina también es afectuosa y quiere ayudarles a ustedes también.
Latin community is also affectionate and want to help you too.
Pongan reglas y las seguiremos también.
If you put rules, we are going to follow them.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carolina. I think that's it for live. Can we go to, no? Sorry?
Did you do all of them for consent?
There's people on Zoom.
We're going to Zoom.
But for the consent items, are they going to? Okay, okay, we'll go to
Oh,
Zoom.
I'm sorry. We have one more person here, Chrislyn. Then we go to Zoom. I'm sorry, Chrislyn.
No worries. Crystal Lynn, the Coastside Chamber. And this is kind of a fun one. I want everybody to start putting on your super fun, creative thinky caps. The Chamber is is working on a brand new Shop Local campaign. So the wonderfulness that came out of the pandemic was people started to shop local and they were supporting our local shops, but that has drastically dropped off. And our shops are really, really hurting. And in case anybody missed the priority session, many of them are not sure they're going to make it even till December. The storms really impacted them, on top of loans having to be paid back now and just so many factors. So we really need to get our local community to shop local. And shop local the phrase has kind of lost its power. Everybody's so used to hearing it that it kind of goes in one ear and out the other. So we need to get creative and think of something cool that the locals will resonate with. So we have a booth at Make It Main Street every first Thursday of the month. So this upcoming one will be June 1st. And at our booth, we will be setting up a shop local think tank. And we want everybody to just come out and let us know what would get them excited about shopping downtown. Is it incentives? Is it a catchy phrase? I mean, we're gonna throw it all at the wall. So please come down to Make It Main Street, the Chamber booth on June 1st. And if any great ideas come up before then, feel free to email me at ceo@cosichamber.com. Thank you.
Thank you, Kristlyn. And now we will go to our Zoom commentators.
Okay, first we have Joanne Rakoski, and thank you again for helping us earlier, Joanne.
First of all, my pleasure, and my name is Joanne Rakoski. I'm a member of COSIDE Faith in Action and the Unitarian Universalist COSIDE community, and I thank you for the opportunity to make a public comment this evening. Last Monday evening at the meeting about the housing plan for Stone Pine, some members of the Half Moon Bay community spoke about their opposition to the project. While they have every right to voice their concerns about the project, some of the comments were angry, disruptive, and demeaning towards those members of the community for whom affordable housing is an immediate and overwhelming need. So I want to assure you that many of us in the community have and will support the developments at Stone Pine and 555 Kelly. I was moved by the statement by one of you last Tuesday that you believed safe and affordable housing to be a right. So do I. And I was equally moved by the statement of another of you who defined character of the community as in fact reflecting our character, our values, not whether or not the community is a charming place to live. You challenge those of us who are supporters of low-income housing to work alongside you as these projects and needed other developments in addition, as these projects will face opposition by some members of the community. I am here to say that I and many others will indeed do so. We are fully in support of these projects and of any other projects that can be put in the pipeline, and as so well stated in the element that was presented last Tuesday, and as was also said last Tuesday, what's in the RENA goals and meeting those is terrific, but we need more, and I thank you.
Thank you, Joanne.
Okay, John Olam. Ready when you are, John.
Hello, Half Moon Bay. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I had to leave. My dog was texting me left and right. I just had to get out of there. So I'm sorry about that. Mainly my comment for public comment was understand that Mr. John Doty has been has gotten a promotion. And he's now in second in command of the city. And in fact, that he is running the city tonight as we speak. Congratulations, Mr. Doty. Not really sure if we should be proud or terrified, but way to go. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Okay, now we have Suzanne Moore.
Hello, council and staff. I'm Suzanne Moore from Pacifica, and I want to thank council and staff for your efforts to create interim housing for essential workers, including our farm workers and the unhoused on the coast, while you plan for permanent housing at all levels of affordability. The coastal community is special, and the housing decisions we make impact us all. I want to lend my voice in support of the work of ALAS and the Affordable Housing Committee. We are no longer in doubt of the health impacts of stable housing in our community. Get Healthy San Mateo has summarized research that demonstrates health benefits for individuals, especially our children, our families, and our communities as a whole. We are no longer in doubt of the economic benefits of housing stability. The state and the county are so convinced of this that they are investing millions of dollars in creating legislation to inspire communities to build homes at all levels of affordability. But we struggle to bring our communities together to support housing projects. Under the weight of misinformation and fear, some members in our community oppose housing projects that are clearly beneficial. This has happened and is happening in every community in our county, state, and nation. Your leadership is needed to educate, engage, and empower us, to help us transcend fear and misunderstanding, provide knowledge necessary for holistic decisions, and create the vision of a future that is inclusive and sustainable. There are members of your community ready to assist you in that task, so please invite them. And thank you again for all your hard work.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have Shauna Pickett-Gordon.
This is Shauna Pickett-Gordon. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Shauna.
Member of Coastside Faith in Action, and I thank all of those who have spoken so far. I am in agreement and support of what Suzanne Moore, Joanne Rakowski, Carolina Carbajal, Reverend Sue Holland, Reb Moshe Hein, Rocio Avila, and Vaughn Harrison have said. And my two big points this evening are, yes, we really need some action on fair rent while the housing is being developed. It is so wonderful to belong to a community that cares the way it does and has the sort of leadership that you all are giving us on that. The other thing is that we really need some education. I've spent a little bit too much time this week on Nextdoor on a particular post that had about probably 50 or 60 angry retorts of one sort or another. It was actually posted by a fellow YIMBY, yes, in my backyard. The amount of fear and misinformation is frightening. But I think we need to get the message across that affordable housing creates a positive impact on surrounding properties as long as the housing doesn't become a ghetto. And I know that we can do this. There are a lot of people who, as Suzanne said, stand ready to help with studies that we've found, and the statewide organizations that support this work have found, and we would love to help. Thank you so much.
Did Mr. Ullum wish to speak on the consent calendar item?
Mr. Ullum, did you want to speak on the consent item? Just go ahead and raise your hand if you would like to, and I will give you the opportunity to speak. Mr. Ullum, if you would like to speak on item 1C, please raise your hand and I will allow you. Mr. Ullum's not raising his hand, but I do have one more attendee that would like to speak. James, go ahead.
Hello, this is James Inglesby. I'm a Half Moon Bay resident. And I just wanted to speak in favor of the Feeding the Wildlife ordinance passing. I know you have many, many things on your plate. You know, the affordable housing and the fair rent proposals being top priority. But your role is not only to protect and care for the humans here in our community and the buildings that we have, but also the beautiful natural environment which we all live. And there are a limited number of people, not just one, but a limited number of people who, through some way they are, feeding wildlife that is changing the ecology on the coast. I've seen it myself over the past few years, and I just wanted to say that it's a very important issue. It's not as vital as some of the other life and death and housing issues, but it is still important to many of us because it is changing things and bringing strange changes to our coast. And I just wanted to thank you for your time and turn it back over.
Thank you, James.
Thank you, James. And Mr. Ullum, thank you for raising your hand. Go ahead and whenever you're ready.
Thank you. I really don't know whether this ordinance is a good idea or not. I've read both staff reports from tonight's meeting and the previous meeting, and there is really no information in those reports other than anecdotal. There are no pictures. There's no real descriptions of, what this particular person is doing. And I'm not debating that, what she's doing is right or wrong. What bothers me is that this council picks and chooses who it's going to go after. I've sent you all proof this evening that a major, powerful, well-connected, got a lot of money person routinely, blatantly, and publicly violates the terms of the agreements that he's made and the laws that apply. And I know you all know about it. And you do now because I sent you all the proof, which is very simple and easy to obtain. But I'm pretty sure you're not going to do anything about it. And I think one of the reasons you're not going to do anything about it is the same reason I'm not going to do anything about it, is because there's an angle to the story that fits our particular values. So this guy will get away with it, just as the gentleman who has a similar operation to the north of town just blew off ordinances, state laws, everything for decades. And you all knew about it. Well, the city knew about it. And nothing was done until somebody finally was a jerk and filed a complaint. And so here we have this ordinance that's being passed. I can't really push back against logically because there's just no information to push back against. We have anecdotal evidence, we have observations. I myself see all kinds of wildlife. I ride every day up and down the highway. I ride back in the different trails that are available to me. I haven't seen any impact that I could tell you anything caused. We haven't had any scientists come here and really study anything. What we've heard is somebody is irritating some people, and now we've spent tens of thousands of dollars creating an ordinance and holding sessions and going twice, even though no information has really been presented that allows somebody who's a disinterested third party can even push back against. And this is really worrisome, that the council would so casually choose this person to go after, this particular complaint to go after, while other items they don't. I mean, some days we're going after a property owner because she wants to turn her studio or a building into a family law practice. Other days we're threatening to pull permits on a horse riding operation because we don't like the way they manage their poop.
Thank you, John. Could you wrap it up, please?
I think you get the gist of it. Quit picking winners or losers. You're causing a lot of disrespect for your government. You're making stuff up that doesn't have any science behind it. And it's just not an effective way to run the city. Thank you.
Thank you, John. We are moving on to the consent calendar. I've been asked to pull item 1C Does anyone else on council wish to pull anything from the consent calendar besides 1C?
Just a clarification, Mayor, is the item pulled for a separate comment, or is it just pulled for a separate vote?
It's pulled for a separate vote.
Okay, great. So yeah, I would recommend go ahead and someone could make a motion for all of the items excluding 1C, and then there would need to be a separate motion for 1C.
So I'm sorry, motion for all but 1C.
Correct.
Yes, could I have that motion?
So moved.
Second? Can I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Do we need a roll call vote? Yes, let's have a roll call vote.
Okay, so we have Councilmember Reddick,
Aye.
Councilmember Rarback,
Yes.
Councilmember Brownstone,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Jimenez,
Yes.
and Mayor Penrose.
Yes.
Motion carries.
And now I would like to have a motion, I would like to have a discussion or motion?
I think you're just needing a motion. on
A motion
1C.
for item 1C.
Yeah, I move that we adopt item 1C, Feeding of Wildlife Ordinance, second reading.
Second?
May we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Councilmember Reddick,
Aye.
Councilmember Rarback,
No.
Councilmember Brownstone,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Jimenez,
Yes.
and Mayor Penrose.
Yes.
Motion carries.
We will move on to resolution and staff reports. Item 3A, update on Magnolia Park Improvement Project.
I'm sorry, Mayor, I'm going to interrupt you one more time. I know it's quite an agenda tonight. We do need a motion on the item 2A. This is a formal continuance of the short-term vacation rental and home occupation ordinance. The staff recommendation is to continue the public hearing to a date certain of June 6th, 2023.
I move that we continue the public hearing under 2A, short-term vacation rental and home occupation ordinance, to a date certain of June 6, 2023.
Second.
Second.
Okay, we'll do a roll call. Councilmember Reddick,
Yes.
Councilmember Rarback,
Yes.
Councilmember Brownstone,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Jimenez,
Yes.
and Mayor Penrose.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, now we will have an update on Magnolia Park Improvement Project.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the City Council. I'm Scott Phillips in Community Development, and I'm also the project manager for Magnolia Park. Now, for those of you, a little background on Magnolia. It's a city-owned parcel that's on the southern portion of Arleta Park, and it is slated for a new park. It does have the land use designation for that use. And the park's master plan that was adopted by the City Council several years ago identified Magnolia as a future park and provided some sort of basic conceptual ideas for improvements to the park. Now, the proposed improvements included in the staff report elaborate upon the, just sort of the basic vision that the park's master plan had for Magnolia Park. Extensive outreach took place before the meeting tonight, just to get members of our community involved with what should go into Magnolia Park. For example, we've had several check-ins with the Parks and Recreation Commission, requesting feedback from them, also public comment opportunities. We also had a community outreach meeting on site at Magnolia Park where we had close to 100 members attend and sending out notices to all of Arleta Park as well as...
Sorry, can you use this microphone? This one's not coming through.
Sorry about that. I'm probably prefer this mic anyway. All right, so community outreach meeting on site. We had just about 100 people attend with boards and opportunity to provide comment. And then a survey also on our website where people could answer a few questions and provide comments on what they would like to see for Magnolia Park. Now, to assist us with sort of the design of Magnolia, we hired Kikuchi Kengel and Design Group to help us out and sort of summarize just the multitude of comments that we received and feedback. And we also conducted preliminary biological work on Magnolia just to get a sense of any biotics in the area to sort of take into consideration with the park design. Now, Tom Conroy from Kikuchi Kengel is here with us this evening, and he's prepared to elaborate along about the design work that's taken place. And then we do have a recommendation in the staff report, and happy to answer any questions or, if any feedback is much appreciated, and any thoughts on Magnolia Park. So with that, I'll go ahead and hand it over to Tom to give us a little feedback on the design work that's taken place.
Great. Should I use that one? Okay. All right. Hi, everybody. It's nice to see you all again. We've been very fortunate to be working on this project for the last couple of years. Our involvement actually started years before that when we were asked by CFOG when they first started their movement for a community garden. I remember meeting out on a sunny, dusty day out in the Johnston House when they were looking at that spot originally. The city's work on the Parks Master Plan, I think, really helped focus everybody's attention on Magnolia Park. And it really, it seems like a pretty great spot, an ideal spot for the development of the community garden, as well as to develop it into a true community park. After the city, as Scott mentioned, city updated a tree assessment, did a topographic survey of the lot, and also updated the biological resources evaluation. We were able to start doing our design concepts in the late summer of 2021. And our office developed 3 different really loose preliminary site concepts. And these concepts varied in design, intensity, and impact. Some were formal, some had more structures. There was also a lot of variety in programming in order for the neighbor to really have a broad range of possibilities to consider. We did these to solicit feedback, and we got a lot of feedback. Scott said there were about 100 people there. We had, in addition to each of the concepts on site, there were whiteboards for people to write their own comments, or in many cases, draw improvements that they didn't see represented on the plans. And simultaneous to this meeting and going for about 6 weeks, I think, there was a survey available through the city's website. And altogether, between the park event, the survey responses, and input we received at the Parks and Rec Commission meeting in December of 2021, we had well over 200 individual comments to wade through, which is really a tremendous amount of response for a relatively small neighborhood park. After synthesizing all of the feedback, the main takeaways were that the overall framework of the park should be developed around Concept C, which you see a little snippet of in front of you. The second thing was that the bike trail and pump track, which is currently a kind of an ad hoc feature on the site right now, was an absolute must to maintain and in fact improve upon. Clearly the community garden had a tremendous amount of support. Also receiving support from the community were creative play, free play areas. These are non-structured play. There was a lot of desire for play structures, but not the play structures that you might find at Ocean View Park or things with bright plastic and metal. People really wanted a natural feel to anything that came into this park. There was also a lot of support for an outdoor learning space. One of our original concepts had a pavilion-type structure that we thought may be used for community events or community garden education uses. There wasn't a lot of support for a structure, but a learning space, an unstructured learning space was high on people's list of priorities. Other than that, passive recreation, things like picnic tables, benches, there was a bocce court that people reacted well to, and walking paths. And last but not least, the environmental sensibility. Everybody who gave feedback or who wrote their comments at the community meeting said, this is a special place. It may not look like it now, but we really don't want to see it blown away. We want you to treat this like the special place it is. And it's almost in a transitional space too, from the built-up neighborhood to the post land right across the street. And so I think that contributed to our development of the plan. People also emphasized green infrastructure improvements, especially on Magnolia Road. This was back in 2021. I imagine after the winter we just had, those improvements to the Magnolia Ditch are probably a little bit further up on their list of priorities. And also eucalyptus removal. There were some people who wanted all of them raised and gone immediately. Others recommended a more gradual approach to thinning the eucalyptus trees, or at least some of the eucalyptus trees, due to fire and safety risk. So with all that synthesis, we got back together and developed the preliminary master plan, which you saw in your packet. And this is the result of all of that public input we received. On the north end of the site, anchoring the north end of the site, would be the bike trail or pump track area. This honors and formalizes much of the impromptu ad hoc trails, jumps, and rails built by the neighborhood kids over the years. Now, some of these elements could become more formal or structured. You can see a more formal jump down at the middle picture on the bottom there, while others may be left more free, like they are now. The picture in the bottom right is a particularly treacherous trail that's there right now. There were a lot of people who wanted us to just let it be free, let it be a little bit more of a dynamic place that the neighborhood kids can come back to over time and adjust and change. Most importantly, though, it was stressed over and over to us by everybody who provided feedback on the bike trail that this feature should be developed through a collaboration between trail design professionals and the community and the kids who will be using it. On the south end of the site, a fenced community garden takes up most of that area. A portion of this site, area, may be a series of raised beds that could be rented for a growing season or two. Some of those may be ground level beds. Others may be raised beds to ensure that there's universal accessibility for the garden areas. Other portions of the garden may be more of a managed garden with large-scale crop plantings, demonstration areas, and education opportunities. There's also ancillary areas for tool storage, propagation, rainwater harvesting, and the Seymour Street frontage, the 20 feet or so between the garden and the sidewalk, is expected to be one of several native plant demonstration areas throughout the park. Briefly, I'd like to highlight some of the other features of the connecting tissue or so that surrounds the main features of the park. One is that we expect all of the trails to be decomposed granite or some other pervious surface with benches and picnic tables and picnic areas along the sides of the path. A central hub occurs at the intersection, the kind of Y-shaped intersection of the two park paths. This area could contain a public restroom, bike racks, drinking fountain, trash can, maybe a park bulletin board, or similar features. To accommodate the range of proposed uses, a modest expansion of the existing asphalt parking area will be required. This also ensures ADA access to the park. Much of the play and passive recreation programming arose during our public input sessions. The community wanted simple, low-impact play features, different, as I mentioned, than those found in other city parks. And one option may be to reuse felled eucalyptus logs for simple, natural climbing features. If more structure is desired, we would recommend natural wood features such as these that you see. These are made of decay-resistant Robinia wood and stainless steel. In addition, I wanted to give you some additional visuals of the creative play or fairy garden areas or in the potential forest classroom. And perhaps some of these benches may be made using those same eucalyptus logs. Finally, and briefly, there was strong community support, as I mentioned, for improvements to the Magnolia Ditch, especially after a winter like we just had. Folks would really like to see a more robust green infrastructure here to better handle the storm surges and to filter pollutants. And spanning this ditch on both north corners would be likely simple bridges, not too dissimilar to those that you would see a bit further down Magnolia Street. It's a brief overview, I know, so if you have any questions, I'm happy to respond. Thank you.
Council. Councilmember Rarbach.
Tom, thank you so much. I've been waiting for a community garden for about a decade now, and I'm just thrilled to see that it's finally going to happen, so thank you.
Vice Mayor Jimenez.
Thank you. I really like the design that you're actually offering. I just have one a concern, I think, same thing as some of the residents, about the speeding traffic, on weekends, on busy weekends. Maybe there's something we can do about that I don't know, something. Yes, for the safety of the children when they ride their bicycles at the park. And I know some of the, or residents, when it's crowded on Highway 1, they take Seymour Street, to come around, on the back streets of Arleta Park or Pilarcitos, and they don't take them slow. I've seen them. So maybe, with this design of the park, we can actually work on something about to slow down the traffic that goes on that street.
That's not the first time we heard those comments. There were a few people in particular especially when we were at our on-site meeting, who mentioned that. One of them, in fact, strongly advocated that we return to the cul-de-sac rather than the drive-through all the way out to Highway 1 that was put in place a few years ago. Traffic calming was out of our design purview, but I would probably defer to the city's input on that.
We heard loud and clear at the recent meeting on Rancho San Benito, and we've heard those before. I think Moz is, the Public Works Director, is fully aware of it, so we'll be looking at some ways to look at traffic calming there. Ironically, one of the best traffic calmings is to have parking along the street in the parking base, but I think that also has some concerns from the neighbors. So we'll have to look at ways to approach the issue. And it is Seymour is pretty wide there, and so it does not, it does encourage folks to drive probably faster than they should. So we'll work on that. I think our first step is to look at putting the speed trailer, radar trailer out there to try to get folks to get immediate feedback. And then we can kind of work from there in terms of actually physical improvements. And it's worked pretty successfully around in various neighborhoods, just letting people know and getting that immediate feedback of just how fast they're going. And but that'll be a start, and then we'll work from there in terms of what physical improvements may be necessitated.
Johnston Street with its speed bumps is great. Can't do more than 15 miles an hour. It's wonderful.
That's always an option, and I think as we've mentioned with Stone Pine, we think that's probably a likely scenario that we'll be looking at as well. But there is a cost and both in terms of noise and efficiencies, fire, police services, all those things. We have to balance out those issues, but there is also a significant cost associated with those. So it's all a balancing act, and but Moz will be working on some of those issues as we move along.
Thank you. Other council members? Councilmember Ruddock.
Yeah, I actually saw this presentation at the Parks and Rec Commission meeting. I think it's a wonderful plan, scenario C. Yeah. I just wanted to say that I concur with Councilmember Jimenez. I live on 2nd Street, and I've taken that shortcut myself. But during the summer months, especially on the weekends, the traffic on Seymour and then 2nd is really horrendous. So we might think about getting a trailer out there for this summer, just to get some data and to slow people down, because it is pretty serious. It is a wide road like Grove Street. There's another street with a lot of, speeding problems. We have to find a way to deal with it. So I just wanted to concur with you on that.
Thank you. Councilmember Brownstone.
Yeah, thanks for the great presentation. Really appreciate all the input, the time you took to get all that input from the community. I loved when you said you had pictures up and people actually had drawings of what they put in, jacuzzis, whatever, I don't know. Also greatly appreciate your creative and innovative use of natural products and wood. Kind of had a real nice Waldorf feel to it when I saw that, so I appreciated that. Less plastic, and it really makes it feel like a more natural environment, so that's great. Thanks.
Yeah, I also thank you for the presentation. I'm very excited about this project. And one of the things that really pleases me is that you've looked at all age groups and all park people types. So you've got kids on bikes, you've got people sitting on benches, you've got people tending gardens. It seems like it's going to be a wonderful community park, something that everybody can use. So thank you.
Mayor, I just wanted to check if there's any public comment on this item.
Any public comment?
I have no online comments.
Thank you. Okay. We're going to take a...
Mayor,
we need a motion?
There is a simple motion there, I think, that we'd
I'll make
want to affirm.
Well, then I have a question. As I live on the corner of Metzger and 2nd, can I actually vote here?
So I don't know if we have the radius maps handy, but if you are within 500 feet of any corner of this project, I would recommend recusal.
I'm pretty sure not.
Okay.
Because I think it's about, I think, 600 feet to Seymour at least. Yeah, okay.
You may proceed.
Okay, may I have a motion?
Yes. Having received a report on the conceptual design for Magnolia Park proposed within a city-owned property located between Magnolia Street and Seymour Street, I move that we accept the conceptual design.
Second? Thank you. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any abstentions? Anybody against? Seeing none, motion passes. Thank you. We're going to take a 5-minute break. Actually, we'll take a break until 10 of exactly. Thank you. Program. This is a workshop. Maz.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Maz Bozerginia, Public Works Director and City Engineer. I did provide a little bit of an update as part of the strategic planning update. We had a couple meetings back, but so some of these slides may be familiar to some folks, but there's also some new information. Am I okay on the mic? Okay. All right, so the recommendation for tonight after our workshop is just an approval of this list and authorizing us to move forward to the Planning Commission, where we are required to do a annual determination that it is consistent with our general plan. So for tonight's meeting, just a little bit of an overview. I'll just, for folks that are unfamiliar, what a capital improvement program is. I'll talk a little bit about our projects and program categories, and then we'll talk a little bit more about our proposed 5-year CIP tonight, which has identified 57 separate projects and programs over that 5-year horizon, and we'll wrap up with some changes to our CIP. So just kind of following up on that, the 5-year CIP, as I mentioned, has a number of programs and projects. We look at the total for the 5 years. It's a little different than the staff report, but for this, there's an estimate of about 83 million if we were to move forward with the snapshot of the 5-year that we have right now. But that's not how we move forward. So this is a programming document, and what we usually do is look on an average. We have about $3 million of general fund contribution towards the capital improvement program. And of course, grant funding is very key to the success of the delivery of a lot of these projects. So just real quick, what is a capital improvement program or a CIP? It is essentially a document that identifies current and future efforts to enhance the quality of life and experience for visitors and residents within a community. And it has 3 primary benefits. Facilitates the scheduling of those improvements, especially for projects that take more than 1 year to complete. It provides oversight and management of the capital projects with some consistency, ensuring that it meets the requirements of our general plan, as well as enhancing our ability to be competitive for grant funding through the state, federal government, and local sources. And so the city's CIP, the capital improvement program, is really it's comprised of 2 components. And this is where it gets a little confusing. So if there's any questions, please stop me. The first piece is a 5-year capital improvement program, which is really the programming and scheduling efforts for the long-term projects. And then there's the 1-year capital budget piece. So what that is it's the first year of the 5 years is what we're committing as far as the funding. It's not the whole 5-year plan, it's just that first year. And that's what's adopted annually. And so if you think about it from that perspective, our city budget is the sum of 2 things, our operating budget and our capital budget. Going into our programmatic categories, we've organized our CIP to cover the different areas of influence. One of the first one I have up here is the stormwater improvements. We have a number of current programs and projects that are underway. our stormwater master plan update, our green infrastructure. We have some very exciting watershed projects that are really starting to formulate and come together. And there's also some very specific needs like the Seymour ditch erosion that we've witnessed accelerated with the recent storms. So that's this category covers a good number of stormwater related impacts. We have our economic development improvements category, which looks at, the one main area is the downtown streetscape master plan. That project is part of the enhancement of economic development in the downtown core area. A lot of the CRI implementation program comes out of this. We also have other elements that are loosely affiliated with economic development, like our land use plan, housing element, and some of the other projects. We have an operational improvements category that looks at some of our more routine but larger expense items like IT replacement program, our fleet, equipment, and what's included in this current year is, which is new, is a permitting software upgrade for our building permit system. We heard a little bit about this earlier, but the parks improvement category, it has a number of components. You heard about the Magnolia Park recently. We are working on our Smithfield 35% design and coastal development permit, and a number of other projects in these categories. Next up is our facilities improvements categories. This looks at ADA improvements, our sidewalk infrastructure. It also incorporates any of our facilities like our courtyard. One new addition to our list is our HVAC systems need some pretty robust repairs. Just age and time and usage. It's time to take a closer look at some of those and also incorporate energy efficient appliances and infrastructure where we can. We've also, the next piece is our sewer improvements category. This one is funded through all the rates that are collected for our system. This is an enterprise fund. We usually don't have general fund dollars into this particular program, but it covers a lot of our sewer maintenance program, our inflow and infiltration, looking at trying to reduce the amount of stormwater and groundwater that enters the sewer system, as well as our larger rehabilitation projects for manholes, pump stations. The good news is we recently, a couple of years ago, we finished our Ocean Colony pump station project. The other two pump stations are in good working order. We continue to maintain those. So we don't have any major projects on our collection system coming up, which is good because there's obviously a number of SAM facilities that are needing some funding and work. So it's that'll be something that we'll talk about at a different meeting. But as far as what we've been working on, some of the bigger projects have already been accomplished, and we're going to continue working on some of the smaller improvements. The next categories are street improvements. So this is one that we've been trying to start up, is our neighborhood traffic safety program. It's been on our list for a while to do, and what we'd like to accomplish is establish a toolkit for residents, a process for residents and communities and neighborhoods to go through to help prioritize, help look at different things that may resolve some of the safety concerns, speeding concerns, things of that nature. We also are funding some of our larger projects like the Highway 1 Safety North project, which is the new signal at Terrace and Highway 1, but it also incorporates the Class 1 East Side Parallel Trail from Main Street to Spindrift. Next up is the trail improvements. So this encompasses the connectivity, the bicycle and pedestrian master planning, some of the connectivity elements from that. We've got our East Side Parallel Trail segments that are obviously incorporated in here. And then there will be more segments. We also have the south extension from Higgins Canyon Road to Miramontes Point Road and Moon Ridge. That'll be coming up as well. So I hate to show this, but it's hard not to. I just need to kind of show the large list of all of the projects and what it looks like in the document. And the reason I'm highlighting this is we took an approach after the listening session and the priority session. We took a close look at some of the expenditures and some of the projects, especially with regards to the general fund expenditures. I know that that was a concern that the council had brought to staff's attention. So we really wanted to look at closely how we can either integrate some of these other projects into a larger project, or if it's something that is, if it was something that maybe has been resolved in a different means. So we took the approach to really clean up the list as much as we could. For example, the wayfinding and entry signs, as well as the Main Street tree lights that you see on this first page under the economic development improvements, we've crossed those out, but it's actually incorporated into the downtown streetscape master plan. Because again, these other projects were here before there was even this master plan. So it made sense at this stage to encapsulate that into one larger project, given that it's covering the same footprint. You can see here, we also did some other cleanup. There were just some projects on the list that, again, are nice and things that we would like to go forward with if we had the time in the budget. But given the pressing matters and needs, we really tried to, again, reduce the project list where it made sense. So some of the elements, like the storage building at Smithfield, again, we're doing a master plan and we're doing a major project. So rather than having it as its own standalone, we're just kind of capturing that into the larger project itself. And then there's some other smaller projects that are still, they're still on the list. Like, for example, the Poplar Beach Gateways plan, that was one of those things. And these are the areas of feedback that we're looking for tonight, obviously. If there's projects that you think we may not be as pressing, that's the kind of information we're hoping to receive from you all tonight. Or if there's things that we crossed off that we shouldn't have. Again, the sewer fund, we didn't, we are kind of keeping the balance on some of the projects that we've been moving forward with and some of the critical items. But again, with the anticipation of a lot of needs for the SAM combined system and some of those other, the Montero Force Main replacement, we're trying to conserve some of our funds and only using it on some of the critical needs, given that we've gone through a lot of our larger improvements. So without going through that in a lot more detail, I'll just leave it for the recommendation and open it up to any questions, comments, concerns.
Council.
I just had one question about the Poplar Beach permanent bathrooms for $125,000. How do you feel that impacts, tourists and the use of that beach? In other words, is that an item you think is worth keeping, since it's our main city beach? So, any thoughts?
Well, it certainly is an amenity. People still go to the beach in droves, But
Yeah, I'm looking at, do you remember which category you were looking at? Was that part of the facilities?
Is that the beach?
We do have, that's still part of our larger master plan. So there, again, it's not, we haven't finalized our Poplar Beach Gateways master plan. So once that's done, we do have that on the list still here. It's under.
Yeah, I'm assuming you're just delaying that for now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got that. Okay.
Although the $125,000 estimate is a little low.
Sounds like it's very low to me.
By about 6 times, I think,
Yeah.
plus.
Utility run by itself is a significant cost.
Yeah. We're, Jill and I just, since we mentioned Poplar Gateways, Jill and I have been just challenged trying to figure out the time and effort to put in that with everything else going on, and we apologize. It's been delayed. The good news was that with the late rains we had, we were able to get the biologist out and do some survey work to update some of the delineation work that they had done a couple of years ago when it was drier. So this is something that we are reactivating on and will be bringing back to Parks and Rec Commission and ultimately to the council in the coming months. But we do apologize that this has been going on longer than either of us would have ever preferred. But it's been difficult to make a priority at this point, given everything else that we've been working on.
Yeah, my sense is when we're talking about welcoming signage, we ought to be talking about Highway 92 before we get anywhere near Poplar Street in terms of priorities.
Yep. Well, and I think Moz is mentioning that, but we've basically consolidated that in the streetscape master plan with looking at the archway and the 92 signage. So that's something that we'll be working through and dealing with the community outreach process of the streetscape master planning work forward with that. So we heard that in the priorities and the conversation from the community. So that's something we have certainly elevated, and Maz's crew have included that in the funding here recommended tonight.
Yeah, we're, as John mentioned, I mean, this is one of the other examples. So, for example, the permanent restroom at Poplar Beach, even though the line items were moved here under parks improvements, again, it's still part of the master plan piece. So, part of what I really tried to do is to make this a little bit simplified, so it's a little easier for folks to follow and see what's going on.
Okay, council.
Just to throw a monkey wrench into this, there's a couple of innovative projects that are brand new that we have talked about as a priority. One of them is community broadband. That's going to involve a lot more than just the city, but I'd like to see it as a placeholder. And also the Skyway over 92. That's a long-term project. It's innovative, and we need to start with a feasibility study. I'd like to see something in the plan that includes those two infrastructure projects.
We can certainly include that if that's the council's desire.
Yeah, certainly the first of those two. I'm not going to say anything more about the Skyway.
If I could, I think we can certainly take a look at those on outer years in terms of probably creating perhaps a whole new category on the broadband. We understand the desire. Clearly, right now, it's a question of what that project is and what it's defined as. And remember, from both Skyway and the CIP, this is a 5-year plan. So we're I think we're all hopeful that broadband is certainly within the realm of less than that. But I think we can work on putting them on the outer years in terms of at least programming and putting it in the thought process.
Yeah, I mean, and one of the things that we would do is once we create, these projects each have a project description, and some of these thoughts that are still in the process, we can certainly encapsulate it in a project page, but it'll be a little bit more of a programmatic.
And I think both of us have seen capital programs that have sort of a category of the dream projects, and so there's that possibility too, where they don't actually get programmed in even the 5-year, but they are sort of billboarded out there. And I'd say the gondola project is one of those.
We had one here when I first started. There was a project that was, I think, the mayor's project. I can't remember the title exactly.
It was the special projects, but but we'll work if consensus is, we can certainly work to integrate the broadband into the economic development side of things and the gondola and transportation, and at least put it in the outer years as a placeholder and start that conversation.
My thinking is the broadband ought to be something that we look at sooner rather than later?
Well, so I think there's two distinct issues. The capital improvement and capital budget is for physically planning for and budgeting for the capital improvements that are designed, that have a funding source, and we understand what that project is. We clearly have broadband as a priority, and we're looking at funding sources, grant funding, we're looking at partnerships, we're looking at Mid-Coast Community Council work, all of those things and dealing with that. It is a little unique to put it into the capital program and capital improvement program without actually having a defined project itself with that, because otherwise you could put a price tag of 20 million, 50 million, whatever that means, and we don't even know what it means exactly at this point. We're still working through the middle mile project description and environmental and CDP work for the Caltrans is working on. But give us a chance, we can come back with that, we'll program it in and deal with it. I think we know what the interest is.
Mm-hmm.
We understand you want to show something in there and identify it as something that you're looking at it, but realize it's a little challenging when we don't have a specific project in mind. It's just a generic, we need to improve broadband and service to, and redundancy and things of that nature.
Okay,
We
Councilmember
need to
Jimenez.
move on it because it's critical for downtown vitality. You know, again, with this event this weekend, far smaller event than Pumpkin Festival, and the internet was terrible. You're not going to get good economic development downtown until you improve the internet downtown. You've got to do something about it. We keep talking, it's like the signage to, directional signage to downtown. We bring it up as a priority, nothing happens. Next year, nothing happens. Next year, nothing happens. You got to have it on the list, and you got to deal with it. That's my opinion about that. And, the tram has economic development components as well. You may have seen the editorial or the op-ed piece in the Half Moon Bay Review. And apparently there are other people willing to kick into a feasibility study. The city's, give might be small, but, you got to think a little big here. And we got to see some motion forward.
Councilmember Jimenez, Vice Mayor Jimenez.
Thank you. That's what I was gonna comment about. It's about the entrance gate, 92. There's really nothing on 92 coming west that shows that we have a downtown in Half Moon Bay. And that's, as you heard today, there's severe, problems with our businesses downtown. I mean, I think we have to move fast in this. We have 5, 6 businesses, at the border of losing a business. We have to do something about 92. I know we talked about the entrance gate, an arch on 92, but if you look at the signage, going east or going west, before you get to Main Street, there's nothing that shows that we have a downtown. You're right. Just recently, people have said, we didn't know Half Moon Bay had a downtown area. And they've been coming through here for over 20 years. And that's part of what we are doing. That way, we talked about doing the priority settings. So what do we need to do to move fast on those signage on 92? To let everybody know that we have a downtown.
Just to piggyback on that, I think anytime you drive through a new area, if you use Waze or a few of the other apps, all of a sudden you see these interesting commercials, right? Ads saying, hey, you're 2 feet away from something great. So I don't know if we've tried that. Crystalline, I know you're out there, but maybe that's something we can do a little bit of social media around where, hey, you're only 2 miles from incredible historical downtown Half Moon Bay, and then you might see certain businesses throw a few pieces in there. So there's a lot of people who really rely on that social media when they're using Waze. So, and it can offer a discount. Certain stores can say, discount, blah, 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 blah. So that also starts building as you get closer. You can social mediaize things that are there. So get specific or general as to what you're advertising.
Well, social media is good, but I think we have the visual that we have a beautiful downtown.
I like both. I'm just saying I'm piggybacking, like, get people excited.
Yes, by any
different
question,
ways.
have you looked at the signs that we have on 92 about Main Street? Has anybody seen them recently? About half a sign that doesn't really show anything. It's missing the bottom part. It's rusted. I mean, if you're gonna enter a community, a city, a town, and you see the sign that you see rusted and half a sign, that's not a good sign. That's not somewhere I want to go. Right?
Doesn't send a confident message, is what
So I'll say we've heard from both you and the community on this. I will say with those signs, there are 2.5 signs, I would say now, when you speak to that point that tells you to go left to downtown. It's certainly, for the last 8.5 years I've been here, and is that those signs basically were private enterprise, and they haven't maintained them particularly well. And so some kind of consolidation of that is, and ownership of that is a necessity. So I think we should definitely look at that issue. That being said, we've heard the desire to look at the archway. It is on the work program for this year to work on that. I want to put and make it clear also from the perspective that there is a new sign, probably the Councilmember Ruddick has seen it in downtown Salinas, and that sign was put in over their main street. About 2 years ago, it opened up just out of there, and it was over $600,000 for that archway sign. Now, it was a very nice sign, but there is a significant cost associated with doing this, just keeping in mind that we need to look at how are we going to fund that and put that forward. We have a huge issue with access and with right-of-way there at Main Street in those areas with driveways. And so it is a challenge looking at where do you put that sign without affecting. And I see bristling from Councilmember Brownstone a little bit, and I'm not saying this is an impossibility. I'm saying that this is a challenge to deal with it that we're up to, and will look at it and address it. The other thing is Highway 92 itself, remember, is a Caltrans right-of-way. Caltrans has very, very specific standards and requirements that very much preclude a lot of signage, particularly these types of signs. They used to be very, very happier and much easier to work with, and because of their liability concerns, they've made it extremely difficult to do things. Again, not that we can't move forward and through that process, but it's something we have to keep in mind, that we don't control that right-of-way, and we don't control the decision-making that goes on that, but we control what we ask for and how we politically address those issues and deal with it. So we've heard you loud and clear. It is on the capital program to look at and to work forward and to deal with a design of that. And we're committed to doing that design and getting consensus in the community and talking about it with them through the streetscape process.
One last comment. A few weeks ago, Crystalline and I took a walk on 92, and we looked at a perfect location for that arch coming to 92, right by the island before we get to the light. And then we also took a look at those signs. Actually, the one sign, half a sign, that's west of Main Street, right by the fish market.
Yeah.
We didn't get to look at the other one east of Main Street, but as I hear from Crystalline, she said it looks worse than the one on the west side of Main Street.
Okay. If we look at an arch, and which is what we're going to look at, it will need to be on Main Street, frankly, because that is where we can control the right-of-way and we can make the decisions on whether we want to do that. I don't know that what and how long it might take to argue with Caltrans for that deal. And we're getting into the weeds, and I don't want to get into the weeds, but we've heard you. We understand the desire to deal with that. Karen is here. She's heard very clearly, and she's been hounding Public Works when I was there and on this issue for a while, and from her downtown association work as well as with Crystalline, and we understand it's a priority.
And I just also think we could be, in terms of costs, we could be creative. We have an unbelievable resource of fantastic muralists in this community that we've seen do incredible murals. So we can do some pretty down-home, folksy art, whether it's on some signs off the highway. And I just think we could get more creative about our approach and take advantage of local talent and, not use a professional advertising firm and pay a huge amount of money. And we've seen the results of some of the incredible murals in this city. So I just think just got to expand our thinking on how to do it. Cool.
Okay, thank you. Shall we,
I just have a couple of comments.
about the same issue?
About, well, a small one about this issue and then another one.
Quick.
So, maybe in the interim, we talk to Jim Henderson or somebody who does radio to have a special, radio station like they have going into Tahoe or something like that. You're coming up on the hill and you can tune in to a radio station and there's somebody on there saying, for Half Moon Bay Historic Downtown, turn left at the next light, which is Highway 92 and Main Street, right? So you're doing it on the airwaves and people can, tune into it. And probably at a very low cost. But it's like an interim, measure we could do to, and you can give them weather reports. It's foggy today. It's foggy today. It's foggy today. But, you could do multiple things with it and probably very cheaply, right? You just need some bandwidth. So I'm just throwing that out there as a possibility. And then I just want to say that, so you mention on, it's actually page 38 of the entire PDF, 38 of 128, excuse me, in the staff report. You mentioned that typically we pay, it's most desirable to pay for things on a, one-time funds on a pay-as-you-go basis. But then you mentioned bonding for major capital projects remains an option. Do you envision any of the projects on the list as potential for bonding?
At this point, we have not gone as far as obviously evaluating that. I think that at some point we are going to have a conversation perhaps about a sales tax initiative or other potential initiative for revenue. We obviously, I think you received a report from Ken, and while that report was not a negative report, there isn't a great deal of room in the budget, and most of what we have is dedicated to, one, keeping the reserves at a very, very high level, and then operating with that. And so from that perspective, it's going to be extremely difficult to bond against what we have already committed to other costs. So bonding is really subject to finding a revenue source that you can dedicate to the repayment of that loan and those issues. Certainly, Smithfield has been one that we've talked about, would be wonderful to take a look at. Magnolia, you just saw tonight. So certainly from, I think, just from the parks and recreation side, parcel taxes, there's any number of things that could be looked at. The pool has been an issue that within the community as well. So those alone are ones that are very big ticket items. And then from speaking with two of you that are sit on the SAM board, we certainly have issues in which we really are going to have to look at some form of bond or loan process for both force main improvements in Montera and Granada, as well as potentially also with major improvements at the sewer treatment plant itself. So I think those are areas that we will certainly look at, and that pay-as-you-go is just not really a viable option when we start reaching into the 10, 15, 25, 30, $40 million range, which is where we could be looking at for those improvements at the sewer levels. So fortunately, in that regard, we obviously have sewer rate structure and the sewer fee structure, but there are limits to what we can ask, I think, any ratepayers to expend and deal with it, and they have to be well justified. So those are just a few of the areas where we think down the road we should look at, and I'm sure there are other improvements and capital projects that the community and you obviously could identify as well.
Thank you. That's it.
Anything else from council? Thank you, Maz. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Miles.
My pleasure.
Oh, yeah.
Public comment.
There's no online comments either.
Okay, no public comment. We will move on to Half Moon Bay Hotel
We need
business.
to make sorry, Mayor, we need to make a motion to approve.
Thank you.
I'd be happy to make that motion.
Please do.
I move that we approve the fiscal year 2023-24 capital improvement project list and authorize staff to present the FY 2023-24 capital project list to the Planning Commission for general plan consistency determination.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any abstentions? Anyone not in favor? Motion passes. Thank you, Maz. We will now move on to Half Moon Bay Hotel Business Improvement District Annual Report for 2022.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Council and Community. I'm Karen Decker, Economic and Community Vitality Manager. I'm going to provide some technical background on this item, and then I'm going to invite Crystalline Geet from the Half Moon Bay Coastside Chamber of Commerce to present the annual 2022 Hotel BID Business Improvement District report and talk to us about the exciting things that the district is doing. And then I'm going to take the mic back for just a moment to wrap up the context of the recommendation and then open it up for questions. So transient occupancy tax, or TOT, is historically the largest source of revenue for the city. It is a pass-through tax collected by visitors and paid to the city. So visitors who pay this tax do so as a result of staying at hotels or inns, bed and breakfast, short-term vacation rentals, RV parks, campgrounds, but by far the largest contributor to TOT are hotels. They comprise about 95% of that pie. And historically, 40% of the city's general fund budget comes from TOT. Before the pandemic, we were averaging about $7 million. And then in 2020, we saw a huge nosedive to about $3.8 million. We saw a modest increase. And then last year in 2022, revenues were in excess of $10 million. So we've seen quite a fluctuation. I should also point out that in 2020, voters approved an increase in the TOT rate. And so last year for 2022, TOT was taxed at a rate of 15%. So promoting business and personal travel is important to the city since it generates the tax revenue, which makes critical services possible for visitors and residents alike. And out of this recognition, in 2004, the city, in collaboration with hotels, started the Hotel Business Improvement District. It's a self-imposed tax of $1 per hotel room per night, and at the time it was within the city limit, and it was charged to its visitors. Money goes back into the BID fund, and that fund administers marketing programs and overnight lodging. Then in 2017, it extended to the entire coastside, and the chamber was designated as the managing agency, which means the city provides the fund to the chamber, and then the chamber works with hotels and the city as a stakeholder to help market and promote the coastside. So I'd like to welcome Crystalline to the podium to go over some graphics that will give light to some of the numbers that I shared, and then I'll just wrap up with some of the technical components of the recommendation we're seeking.
Thank you so very much. Again, Crystalline with the Coastside Chamber, the managing partner of the Hotel Business Improvement District. The mission of the district, as Karen lovingly mentioned, was basically to create a marketing fund for the coastside to help bring tourists to our area. Now, to the chagrin of our locals, but we do our best. And what we like to reiterate is that the goal of the BID is to bring mid-week corporate visitors. That's the main goal. We're not trying to overpack the hotels on the weekends. We want meetings to come and use our hotels for their getaways and their retreats, and really spread the tourism out. Our weekends are already crazy. So in 2022, we started to see a really great rebound and get pretty close to where we were pre-pandemic. So on the coast side now, there was a couple of hotels that closed during the pandemic. So we have, on any given night, 739 rooms. That creates 269,000 rooms over the course of a year. And in 2022, there was 161,643 of those rooms occupied, bringing in a January to December TOT revenue of just over 10 million. And then we have fancy formulas, and there is no standard formula, so we just kind of assume that each hotel room night equals out to about 1.75 people. Sometimes there's one, sometimes there's four, and that those people are spending at least $30 per person when they're here, which that's actually, I'm sure, a major underestimation because that's not even a meal. And so based on those numbers, we suspect that those travelers are bringing in roughly $8.4 billion to the coast side over the course of the entire year. Next slide. So in every year, the BID sets forth its priorities based on what happened the year before and what do we need to kind of redo so that we reach our goal for those midweek sales. The pandemic obviously put a real big kibosh on that, and we actually had to go back to trying to get leisure travelers to come from Sacramento, from San Francisco to come and experience our beaches and things like that, and our downtown Main Street and our shops to try to keep them alive. So one of the main priorities in 2022 was to continue to try to generate media. And as you can see, with the help of our PR firm, we were able to generate 58 articles, many of them actually national, which was 10 more articles than in 2021, and almost 20 more or more than 20 more articles than 2022. And a lot of the time to get those articles written, we host the travel writers, so they actually come here and they write about what they experience. And so we're seeing a rebound in that as well. And so we were able to host 8 travel writers. Next. So then the second of 4 priorities was to continue to increase the website traffic. And that's kind of our best indication of how we're doing on digital ads. So that's social media, that's Google AdWords, lots of different ways. And if we're doing a really good job, then the visits to the website increase. There was a bit of a crazy inflation over 2020 and 2021 where people were looking for outdoor spaces. We really saw a big jump in the website traffic. Now it's kind of tapering off and normalizing to kind of what it was pre-pandemic. But in an effort to not lose the momentum that we were gaining in 2020 and 2021, you'll see that a future priority is to rework the Visit Half Moon Bay brand to, it's been over 5 years since it was refreshed, so we really want to create something that'll grab the attention of people that have probably seen it 100 times and might be ignoring it at this point. So our users were still well above 400,000. They're spending more than a minute on the site, which is great. The battery is running low, so somebody go get a plug. And the total page views was over 800,000. Overall, for a website, those are really awesome statistics. Next. Yeah. Unfortunately, the trend, we had a priority to wait and see about corporate groups because we knew that was going to be the last travel segment to rebound after the pandemic. So 2022 was still not the time to invest in corporate groups. They just were not coming out in the numbers that we would need where the investment would be worth it. So we held off. However, we have, as of February, seen a real jump in the request for meetings in corporate spaces. So we have already started to engage bringing back our corporate coordinator. They should be on board in the next 2 weeks or so, and we'll really start making some aggressive moves to grabbing those industry corporate people. And then next, we did, as I mentioned, because of the pandemic, next slide, have a priority for leisure travel, because we knew that was really the only chance that we had to keep a lot of things flowing at any level. And so you can see that year over year, the pandemic had a real dip, and we were barely seeing 1,000 people a room in the rooms in April, and we have rebounded quite well from that. So one thing that we track through the BID assessment is it allows us to get a really good gauge of what's going on in the hotel occupancy. So 2020, we were able to jump back up to 60%. And in comparison, 2021, we were at 52%. So we gained 8%, which is great. 2020, it was 37%. That's when we all cried. And then 2019 was 65, so you can see we're really close to pre-pandemic. And our most recent high was 69% in 2015. So just to keep it in the right framework that, you know, we aim for 100, everybody aims for 100, but most destinations, 70 is rocking it. So we are actually doing pretty darn good, but we still aim for 100. So for 2023, because we are getting back to a more normalized travel, we have reshifted the priorities to be more in line with pre-pandemic. So as I mentioned, we're re-engaging with corporate planners, and we'll be bringing the corporate coordinator back on, and we are going to plan a familiarization trip. So that's where we invite corporate planners and we create a whole 2-day extravaganza for them, and we take them all over the coast side and show them all the different things that they could do in all of the hotels and downtown and the harbor, and get them really, really excited about bringing their meetings here. And then we're gonna work on rebranding Visit Half Moon Bay just to really refresh it and give it a new face and new life. And then we're going to continue to diversify the marketing channels. So throughout the pandemic, many paper and other travel-based magazines, they fell away, but some other really interesting ones have popped up. And so we continue to keep our eye on those and try to work out ads. We've even partnered with the Downtown Association to go in together on an ad that was mutually beneficial. So we're just always keeping our eye out. And yes, I did already send the marketing somebody a note about the Waze, so we'll get back to you on that. We do have a local merchant that does have an ad on Waze, so I have noted that we will check with them to see what the stats look like. And then we will continue to work with our PR firm to generate positive media buzz about the area. Top 10 lists have become way popular. So we're always trying to work to figure out how to be on those top 10 lists and then have top 10 lists actually created about the area. And so our PR firm is really good at working on those types of things and then coordinating to get more travel writers here. Next. So then on the next slide is our funding support request. So not that we are requesting to change anything, but for like destinations, our budget is on the smaller side. Many destinations do 1% per room night versus $1. So $1 went a really long way when that was established in 2004. It's a little less now. And so the city has very lovingly helped us with $40,000 per year towards accomplishing the priorities. So if you were to approve the $40,000 to help us continue marketing the destination, we are requesting $10,000 go specifically towards really re-engaging with those midweek stays and allowing us to figure out some really cool ways with that fam trip and other ways that we can make meeting planners really want to come here. And then continuing to work on our digital and print marketing. This $40,000 funding would not go towards the rebranding, that is separate. But it would go a long way to help us market the rebrand once it's done and allow us to do some ads, more varied ads farther, because now is about the time when we can start looking at advertising in other states. So there are a couple of states like Texas, when it gets really hot there, it's really cool here, and so they love to come here, and we have not advertised to them in a while because the chances of them flying out here was slim to none. But we are finally to the point where we can welcome back our hot state travelers, and so we would love to do that. And, if there's any questions, I didn't put a question slide.
Do we take public comment first?
If there are any clarifying questions for Crystal, you could ask her now. Otherwise, I would go ahead and take public comment.
Actually, I don't have a question. I just have a comment. Should I wait after public comment?
Yes. Yes, let's do public comment first.
I have no online speakers.
Okay. Vice Mayor Jimenez.
Well, don't forget that we have a major attraction in Half Moon Bay that not many coastal communities have. And I think it'd be great if you could actually incorporate that into a visit, marketing, Half Moon Bay. We have a business that rents horses throughout the beach. And that, I don't know if you know, but that's a major attraction for people from over the hill and from the city.
Wait, Seahorse?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, no, we always work with Seahorse.
Yeah. So I mean, I didn't hear anything you commented about. You talked about the beach, the restaurants, but you didn't talk about Seahorse. So no, but I think it's a major attraction.
Yes.
Even when we ride at the beach, people ask, where to rent horses. And then a 4th of July parade, the same thing. It's always been a major attraction when the horses are around.
Yes, we very often invite or pay for travel writers to go at Seahorse, and glass blowing is another really popular one. We've got a couple places that do mixology classes. So we do our best to spread them around, and anything that we think makes us stand out, we are definitely all over it.
And there's also a major connection with the hotel, like the Ritz, right, is all connected up with that, and that brings in a lot of the business too.
Yeah, actually, I worked at Seahorse when I was in high school. So I've known the business for a long time. And the previous management, they used to book rides, people from all the way from Japan. So during those years, we used to wrangle for a lot of riders that came from other countries. So it is a major attraction that not a lot of coastal communities have. So it's a big benefit, especially during the middle of the week.
Yes. 100,000%.
Okay, other comments? Questions? I just wonder if you target a particular age group. I know the midweek is a particular age group that's working folks, but outside of that, is there an attempt to get young people here who have more money to spend?
We do, through the social media campaigns, we definitely gear those more towards younger audiences, kind of 30s, 40s, 50s age. So yes, we try to hit them where they are, which is typically social media.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions? Thank you, Crystal.
If I may, in order to continue administration of the hotel BID, we're asking council to consider adoption of a resolution of intent to continue the levy, the assessment for the district. We're also asking that you set a date for a public hearing of June 20th, 2023, which coincides with the city council meeting, which will allow time if anybody would like to protest. Between now and that public hearing date, staff will send letters to hotels and public notice this hearing. And then any of those protests will be entertained at that date.
Do I have a motion?
So we can't, okay, got it. All right, so I move that we approve the Half Moon Bay Hotel Business Improvement District Annual Report for 2022. That's 1. And 2, we adopt a resolution declaring the city's intention to continue the Half Moon Bay Hotel Business Improvement District, to continue the basis and to levy the assessment for the district, and to set a date, June 20th, 2023, for the public hearing on the district and the assessment for FY 2023-24, and 3, consider a $40,000 funding request to be included in the FY 2023-24 recommended budget.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Aye. Any abstentions? Anyone against? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Okay, we are moving on to early payoff of 880 Stone Pine Road iBank loan.
Why is it not working?
IT guy can't make it. There we go.
There it goes. Good evening. Thank you for bearing with all the stuff on the agenda and staying awake all the way to this point. I'm Brian Lopez, Senior Management Analyst under Lisa, and yeah, we just wanted to discuss obviously the Stone Pine loan and our request to have you give us authorization to go ahead and pay that off early. Pull my notes. So the city was approached by Post with the intent to sell the 880 Stone Pine property and provided the city with the first right of refusal. The city determined that it was necessary to take a loan for the purpose of purchasing the Corporation Yard site and completing the purchase in 2021. After extensive research, iBank was chosen as the best option available for the city's needs at the time, and listed are a few of the reasons iBank was chosen over conventional options. Obviously, you can see some of them with the interest, 30-year loan term, and it provided a little bit more flexibility over some of the other options. The state has directed cities and counties to increase housing for low-income and underserved people. The city has limited available land and has identified 880 Stone Pine as one of really very few locations that meet this state requirement. The iBank loan that we currently have prevents our ability to meet our housing requirements for that property for the following reasons. The loans themselves from iBank are restricted, and it means that basically we can't do certain types of projects or or use the funds for certain purposes. Housing is one of the specific restrictions on the use of funding, and this would prevent any possibility of building affordable housing until the loan at 880 Stone Pine is paid off. At the time we got the loan, we didn't believe that it would be feasible to place housing on the property, and so it wasn't believed to be an issue when we actually got the loan originally. We are bound under our loan for two components, the purchase of the property, which has been completed, as well as the construction and improvement of the new corporation yard facility. However, due to delays stemming from COVID, supply chain issues, inflation, just to name a few, the planned cost to complete has also ballooned beyond what was contemplated when the loan was entered into. And to meet the terms of the loan, we would need to complete the entire project by August 1st of this year, and the cost would be an additional $3.5 million on top of the current projected cost for work already being done. So one of the things that we're bringing forward is a desire to work with San Mateo County to basically refinance this loan. And so just to kind of mention, kind of a few of the reasons why we're kind of moving forward, we want to move forward in this direction. The city and San Mateo County have had discussions regarding a shared interest in providing affordable housing for underserved individuals, such as local farm workers. San Mateo County has offered a possibility of providing a very favorable loan for the purpose of refinancing our current iBank loan. This would provide the much-needed opportunity to remove the restrictions on the property that prevent any possibility of providing affordable housing until the loan is paid off, which currently would be the year 2050. We are already collaborating on several housing opportunity sites and are already partnering on a grant finding with the county, including a $5.8 million Joe Cerna housing grant. And so we believe that San Mateo County really would be a really great partner for this. And the computer just died.
I thought it's plugged in.
It is plugged in. Okay. While she does that, the last slide kind of broke down everything that I kind of discussed. But I wanted to highlight a couple things. And one is that if we stuck with the iBank loan, we wouldn't be able to do housing, obviously, as I mentioned before. We currently have an annual debt service of about $170,000. And if we didn't meet the terms of the loan, iBank could actually require us to pay the loan back in its entirety, which would leave us with a $3.2 million payment due, which at this point in time would have to come out of reserve funds based on our current estimations. Of course, if we also stayed with iBank, we would potentially lose any housing grant funds that might be available for putting housing on the property. And what we'd be looking at for the fiscal year 23-24 would be a remaining reserve fund balance of about $7.8 million. However, if we did choose the loan, work with San Mateo County for the purpose of the loan, we would still need to negotiate all the terms. So we'd be looking, we wouldn't know exactly yet what the debt service would be on that. We would pay the entirety of the $3.2 million of the iBank loan through a refinance with San Mateo County, which would negate any need to use reserve funds to pay that balance. And that would leave us then with about $11 million in reserves for next year based on our current estimations. One thing I do want to mention, though, as well, if we did choose to pay the loan with reserves, based on our current policy adopted by council, we would actually have to pay ourselves back that amount within 5 years. Next slide. So I'll take any questions that you have right now. Unless you want me to read the recommendation right now?
Are there clarifying questions
Yeah, clarifying
before
questions.
public comment?
Now you do have, yes, thank you. I want to be looking at that slide.
Certainly.
Is there a question, or are we going to public comment?
Well, I did want to, is this time to clarify the numbers up here?
Sure.
So I was looking at the Schedule A and B that you provided, and I don't know, by my calculation, we currently service the loan comes to about 163,000 a year. You said 170, right? Which is fine. But then if I multiply that 170 by 28 years remaining approximately, so that's how you come to the 3.2, is that right?
Yeah, the number is an approximation.
Okay.
There's two components of the loan. So there's the loan purchase, and then there's also the construction piece. And so there's a little bit more going on with it. But yeah, we approximated that at 170.
Okay.
Based on our current year, we've spent about 167,000.
All right. Keep going, I'll use
Do
my
we have public comment?
We have no online public comment.
Okay, we bring it back to council.
Yeah.
So,
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, so we are looking to ultimately get an approval to send a letter to iBank requesting all the payoff information and to initiate that payoff process. Generally, it takes about 90 days to complete that process. And so this would be the next step in order to start working with San Mateo County to go ahead and initiate that payoff and everything. And then the next part of that would be that we are looking to get permission to go ahead and negotiate with San Mateo County. And then we would bring back whatever is negotiated to council at that time before moving any further.
So sorry, I just got
So-
my calculator back. So if I multiply 163,000 a year, or whatever, you said 170, by 28 years left, I came out with 4.5 million. Am I
Interest.
doing bad?
No, that's
Right?
about right.
It is right, yeah, okay, yeah, including, right.
Yeah.
So, right, but if we pay it off early, we lose the interest portion of it.
Right.
Okay, got it. That makes sense.
Can you please explain to me this lease agreement concept? What does that look like? What does it involve?
Yeah, so a leaseback is basically where we are effectively leasing it to a lender, and then they pay us for the term of that lease. So in this situation, like for iBank, they basically paid us, X amount of dollars, and then we pay that back we rent it back effectively from them over the next 30 years. We still maintain ownership of the property, but that's how it kind of works. So we just lease it to them, and then they lease it back to us for that. It's a little convoluted. It took me a little bit when we first went around the first time around on this.
And I'm happy
kinda
to weigh
understand
in as well from the legal perspective. It is permissible under state law to do the lease back as a way of refinancing. Otherwise, there are legal challenges to just taking out a loan from the county. So the county has this program, and we've reviewed their form documents. The county recently loaned the city of Belmont, I think, $6 million for a sports complex under the same lease-back structure. So that's sort of the format that we would proceed under with this potential refinance through the county.
So we now have a very favorable loan with the iBank, very favorable interest rate. What is it going to do to our bond rating to move into this lease agreement and possibly replace it with something that costs us even more? What is it going to do to our ability to borrow or to bond?
Joan speak to that?
I honestly don't know. I think the best answer I can give you is that we have a very positive, I think we looked it up the other day, I think it's AA plus is what our current bond rating, which is very favorable with, I believe, Moody's. Given that we are basically indebted for the same amount of money, and we are looking at collateralizing, in this situation, the library, which is basically has a fairly significant equity position with that, I don't think that this would have much bearing on that, but we can certainly have a conversation about what this means for our bond rating. But I think our perspective and belief is that this would have very little to do with what our rating for bonds would be, but we can certainly look at in more detail at that.
Yeah, so here's why I'm concerned. In the previous staff report related to capital projects, on that page 38, it talks about how to pay for things, right? It talks about pay-as-you-go, and then it talks about bonding. And it says, however, the ability to bond is directly related to the city's capacity to maintain revenue sufficient to operate and repay debt. You know, we were able to construct the library, purchase 880 Stone Pine. So I'm kind of concerned about the alternative to the iBank loan here and what it'll mean, you know, for our budget and for our ability to borrow in the future. So I need to hear from you why you think the county is going to give us favorable terms. Be a little transparent with us about what the discussions have been about, to try to build a little confidence here.
So first and foremost, there is some issues, and I think a basic premise that they aren't really in a position to try to ask for more than what they would gain out of their normal investments, which is basically based on the LAIF rate, which is somewhere around 2 to 2.5%. About 2.5% right now is where the LAIF, the state investment fund, is for public agencies. The best example and the best reason why I feel, and I think staff feels very comfortable with this, is that Catherine indicated we have the record just from Belmont in a recent situation, which they were basically at 2.5% over a 10-year with a 10-year option for extension from that point. That's at least a great place, I think, to start. And we know that the LAIF return rate is about 2.5% right now, 2 to 2.6, somewhere around there, with a little variability. That is what our conversations have been. They are not, the county looking to gouge. They are looking to basically take the money that they wouldn't otherwise have put into an investment, a very safe investment at 2.5%, and loan that to us for a period of time. Again, because we have not had the public authority and discretion to be able to do this, we have not been able to dig into much of this detail. But I think, again, the Belmont is a great example. Frankly, the county's loan to us for the library is a pretty fair example and sample of what the county can and will do when they see a value. They clearly are at this point looking at investing upwards of $1 million toward engineering and civil engineering work for 880 Stone Pine. They need to have clear title to this property. We need to have clear title to this property if we are to proceed with housing on this. So frankly, we're not going to be in a position to invest $3.5 million toward building a building on that site. We will be in default of at least a provision of the loan. I would argue very strenuously that a default on the iBank loan would be far more detrimental to our bond rating than refinancing and going to the county loan. So I think that's really what this table here was trying to convey, and we struggled with how to convey that, but that's really what we're really saying is that we are, as of August 1, will be in default of at least one provision of the loan, because we are not going to build a $3.5 million operations building there. We just cannot, which means we have to negotiate with them, but perhaps changes to the terms of that loan. Otherwise, we will be in default. So again, this is a situation that is extend beyond the issue of housing, but the housing opportunity gave us a great pathway to this. And we were evaluating 6 months ago what this looked like in terms of reserves and using reserves and paying off this loan, and we landed on the fact that we didn't think, with the economic conditions as we're seeing it, a desire or a value in expending $3.2 million in reserve funds in this situation. So we are kind of put in a position in which we have what we believe is a very favorable terms to come forward with to alleviate this issue of a potential default on the iBank loan, as well as provide a pathway to allowing for affordable housing on that site.
I'm going to tell you how I look at it. And I don't want to be dictated to by the county. You know, the county needs to be generous with housing farm workers who work on county farms, predominantly, right? So I think we need to tell them the terms. And as far as I'm concerned, it's got to be as good or better than the iBank loan. As good or better, not more money out the door. And so I want to hear them say that. We're going to give you something equal to or better. Otherwise, I'm not going to support it. So
fair enough.
The council needs to give direction on the terms. Otherwise, it's not a negotiation. So we need to actually go to them and say, this is what the council said. Here's the boat we're in. Our budget's not looking that great. We're still paying off the library. This is what it's going to take to close this deal. We're not going to default. We would have to pay, but I'm not going to have the county making money off of this deal. So that message has to be conveyed.
I think the record is clear at this point from
And we created this bed that we're sleeping in. We could have figured this out a long time ago about the courtyard. So, it's not that we've been put into this situation, we've put ourselves into this situation. My 2 cents.
We're not in danger of defaulting on, right now we have a $3.2 million loan, and we're servicing that at $170,000 a month, right?
The actual default, is related to the building of the second structure. There's parameters that were required of iBank when we took the loan. And at the time, we truly believed our work project was in line with the timeline. However, as you know, there has just been a lot of areas that have struggled, costing of supplies, labor needs, all those things put our schedule way behind. And that's where iBank has said we needed to finish construction by August 1st, 2023. And that included not only the work we're doing now, but the construction of a operations center, which is what was part of our plan. So if that is not done by August 1st, they consider it, iBank considers it. And this was all, when we talked and we brought this loan to the council, it was part of the package. It was very clear that they wanted us to complete, and we actually believed we were going to push it and we could actually finish this project. We had no way of predicting what would happen with the economy, with supply demand. And so in iBank's eyes, and we've had a couple conversations with them, not about the discussion that we're having tonight, but about the loan and the parameters. And they've made it clear that if the construction of the operations center was not done, that it was actually considered a default in their eyes. And so that piece of it, it's not necessarily the money because we've been making our payments. It's the matter of what was actually required for the date of August 1st, 2023.
So I'd like to understand that a little better, just how that works. So if we finished it by August 2023, we'd still be making our $170,000 a year payments, right? So what is there, what do they lose by extending the time in their eyes to
They,
construct it?
I was
How's
just,
that work?
if I could just make one comment. I think there's a bigger picture. It's not that iBank would lose anything. I think the city would actually lose an opportunity. Because if we kept the loan under iBank, all the other things that we wanted to work on in terms of housing and all the other projects would not come to fruition. So
But
but I will let Brian speak to iBank's position.
Yeah, if I may.
Okay.
I think, unlike a conventional loan, these ones are restricted. They're tax-exempt bonds that are issued by the state, and that's what they use to fund these. And so they come with a whole slew of restrictions, which at the time when we brought this to council, we didn't even think we could build housing on the property. So they told us right out of the get-go, no housing, no housing, no housing. But it was fine at the time. We didn't anticipate, we didn't think there was gonna ever be, we thought there was gonna be environmental issues, other things that would have completely precluded it. But now we've done work on the courtyard, we've started making progress on that project. We've mitigated a lot of those issues, and so now it's a real viable option to have housing on that property. And so as such, now we're running into this problem where these specific tax-exempt bonds that are issued, these funds, can't be used for the purpose of housing. And so since we used it to purchase the property and it's backing the loan, that's where we run into this issue. And that also kind of plays into the purpose of the loan itself, and the restrictions about completing it. And so as I mentioned earlier, there's two components. So there was the purchase of the property, and then there's the construction aspect. And much like a conventional construction loan, you have to complete the construction within a certain period of time. And so in this case, we have that same restriction. We had relatively favorable time frame on that. Originally, we were supposed to have that completed by 2022, and we spoke with iBank, and they were able to give us an extension. However, in this case, we're out of extensions. And so based on the way the loan is constructed, we would be in default, as was mentioned, under that term. And they may be able to make some adjustments as far as payments and everything, but it would be restrictive. And we would need to talk to them about it. We would need your permission to go that route as well.
So I guess the bottom line is there's two pieces. One is getting another loan to pay off the existing iBank loan. Then there's the cost of doing the construction. So looking at this whole project, 'cause I don't feel we should, I'm really worried that we get caught up in, we didn't, the estimate for the construction was off. So for the construction of the housing, do you think the Joe Cerna grant of $5.8 million will cover that? That's one question. The other question is, let's say we get, it's all about not just the percentage, but how many years we get to pay off. So you're talking about a 10-year loan, and let's say we get the same favorable rate, but instead of a 30-year loan, which we have under iBank. So what is the approximate amount per year if we get a good rate from the county? But let's say they only give us 10 years. So does that triple the amount? We just need some estimates here.
If I could say this, again, I'll go back to what we're asking, which is the authorization to go and start to talk about the terms. I think it's perfectly appropriate to lay out what your expectations are, what you would like to see. Councilmember Ruddick has made clear. It was pointed out that the Belmont agreement was at 2%, so it wasn't at 2.5%, it was 2%. That was just recently done. So again, I think that they've shown a willingness to be fair in that. I think the term is an issue. But we're, we were, I think, hesitant at the time because most public financing is done on a 15-year maximum. We put this out to a 30-year time frame, which meant you did the calculation, about $1.5 million of interest. I think that we should look at something otherwise and maybe look at reducing the amount of interest we pay and doing that. So I think that's the balancing point here. Do we want to pay 30 years for that loan or not. At some point, we probably would be looking at an early payoff. We have, under the iBank loan, we had built in at 13 years, we could buy it outright and pay off the deal. And I think we had always planned for that, at least at the staff level, to not extend this out to a 30-year loan. But this provided some flexibility. That was a good thing. But again, we're in a rock and a hard spot. I'm not, happy to be here and having to put this out on the table and pressure. And I know this feels like pressure, and I know that's an uncomfortable thing. We're caught as staff in the same basic situation. But again, we understand the desire. We understand the need to protect the public interest. We need to look at how we approach this issue. And in retrospect, the iBank was an interesting loan. It was challenging, but it was certainly tied to a different issue than we're sort of looking at today. I don't know, other than to say, we're simply asking for the authority to go and talk about it and see if we can find a solution to this with that deal. I would suggest this, that you could add to any recommendation you make that we also consider asking iBank to look at terms related to the construction piece to this deal. So we hedge a little bit on this as well. So that's one way that we could approach.
To extend the timeline.
To extend the time on that. Okay. So we could hedge a little bit and provide opportunity and not be perhaps as put under the gun, so to speak, for this August 1 deadline. But the reality, I will say this, is that the Joe Cerna, if we take it from the housing perspective alone, and the answer is this project is somewhere around a $15 million project out all in for these, say, 50 mobile home units. So 5.8 million gets you 28 units of housing there. That's 28 out of the 50. That's what the Cerna grant is covering. The county is looking to basically invest this money and put this money out there and deal with that. And this is just one piece of it. We have to have control of the land before we can spend $1 of any grant funding we get, particularly the Joe Cerna. So there is a very distinct timeline that we are under if we are trying to move this as quickly as possible. And we have families who will run out of housing that were displaced due to the shooting next April. And we're trying to turn around a project in a very quick order. And so this is the struggle that we're in on a day-to-day basis, trying to balance out, again, our fiduciary financial responsibilities to the public at large, but also to try to deal with this acute need for developing some replacement housing for folks.
So I just want to get your numbers straight. You're saying the construction would cost $15 million is the estimate right now?
All in, somewhere between $12 and $15 million for the site.
The Joe Cerna grant is for, let's just call it $6 million. So where would the balance of somewhere between 8 and 10 million come from for the construction?
At this point, the county has indicated a commitment to funding this project either through additional grants, philanthropic gifts, or through their Measure K funds.
So they'd be committing to fund the complete the balance after the
We have
Cerna
also requested up to $3 million from Senator Padilla and Feinstein for what we'd hope for phase 2 as part of the federal allocations. But we don't know where that will land. But at this point, our partners are indicated a commitment to moving forward with this and funding this project in whatever means necessary.
Because I imagine we want to get that housing built within 2 years from start to finish, correct?
Yep.
So we're going to need that money quick to get that done.
Yes.
And so that's why I'm just trying to see the full picture of what we might end up being indebted for here. And I'm always looking at that, what that yearly extra amount is, because I know we still have the library fund for another 66 years for about $570,000 a year. And that's the only way we can really figure out our budget, if we can, do this. So I'm optimistic, but we have a responsibility to really get the numbers straight and to still have that option in case we can't make it work, that we can get an extension on the original iBank loan for some time. I just want to make sure we have options either way, because there's weird things going on in the economy right now that no one can predict over the next year. And
I think we all agree
that
that hedge is a good thing to add to this, to include in any letter we send to the iBank, which is to also include a provision for modifying the time frame for that issue.
Right. Okay.
I think that's good, because this issue first raised its head about 2.5 months ago, right? And we're just dealing with it now. So I think we need an extension. I'm still in the space where the county, on philosophical grounds, should not be making money out of this loan. It's the wrong thing to do. If they're going to be a partner, they got to be a partner all the way through. So.
I strongly support this idea. For many reasons. We'll start with the simple one, that housing is what we've been talking about for the last year. And if we don't approve this approach to iBank, we're out of luck for the housing. So that by itself, in my opinion, is a no-brainer. I trust the county. I don't think the county is going to make money off of us. The interest rate on the library is pretty good, I believe, 0%. It just seems to me that it'd be nuts to not explore the option of negotiating with iBank to not be in default and to start negotiating with the county. I trust the county. I think our new supervisor is certainly in support of farm workers and housing on the coast. So to me, this is just a clear no-brainer that we have to support this proposal. Thank you.
So remind them about the library loan. Yeah, that'd be good.
Vice Mayor?
I agree with Harvey. This is something that we actually have been talking about. This is an opportunity. With the contract that we have, we're not going to be able to build, correct? So paying this loan, getting the loan from the county to pay the loan, the actual loan, will give us the opportunity to actually start working on the grounds so we can start building. And I agree with Harvey again. I don't think the county is going to be looking into making money from us, because we are actually building a partnership with them to build, farm worker housing. So I support.
I also support it. I thank Councilmember Brownstone and Ruddock for their careful inquiry. I think the questions you've asked are critically important. I agree with Councilmember Ruddock that taking the correct attitude with the county in terms of, us suggesting the terms rather than letting the county come to us is a good approach. At any rate, I am for this project, and I would like to ask for a motion.
Excuse me, Mayor, we do have one public comment online.
We do have public comment. Beverly Davis?
Go ahead, Beverly.
Hello. My concern is already you needed an extension to build your operations center. And now you're going to go this other way. You're going to refinance your loan, and then you're going to have a new date. Are you going to be able to make that date?
Thank you,
not hear
Beverly.
me? Oh, sorry.
Did you have something else you wanted to say, Beverly?
No, I just would like somebody to address that. Like how, I mean, I don't know, I don't have a lot of confidence because you're saying you're short, labor and various other things. So how are you going to finish projects? I mean, I know that your first goal is to get a refinanced loan, but then again, what's the next expectation? Are you going to be able to meet that? Or are we going to be back where we are now?
Thank you, Beverly. Bring it back to council for any discussion. Okay, may I have a motion?
Yeah, and I'll make a motion. So yeah, I think that, I just want to be sure everyone sticks with their commitments. And I do trust that the county will do this because they made huge commitments a few months ago about providing for housing. So now we're kind of holding them to do that because someone's got to pay, and obviously we would not have enough money to pay it ourselves. To answer Beverly's question, what this plan does is we are completely paying off that loan, reimbursing that loan, and having an arrangement from the county to pay for that. So in other words, we won't have any more, in terms of the corporate yard, have any constraints of how long we take. We will have paid that off. So it brings it back under our control. So I just wanted to answer that person's question. Okay, so I move we adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager or designee to submit a letter requesting an exception or timeline, how should we word this? An exception to the terms of the financing agreement with the California Infrastructure Economic Development Bank, allowing early payoff of the loan and or extension of time. So we have that option in there. I'm sure you know what we're talking about. Got enough direction on that. And 2, commence negotiations of a leaseback agreement with San Mateo County to facilitate payoff of the loan with the California Infrastructure and Economic Development Bank, known as iBank.
Second.
Can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Reddick? Yes. Councilmember Rarback?
Yes.
Councilmember Brownstone?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Jimenez?
Yes.
Mayor Penrose?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you, Lisa, and thank you, Brian. We move on to, for future discussion, possible agenda items. Does anyone have anything they want?
I do. I would like to agendize talking about rent control. It's something that we need. It's going to be at least 2 years before we can actually have anything available for the community. And we need to do something about what's happening right now. And yes, talking about rent control is a priority.
I agree, and will second that.
Mayor, may I just, we can put that on that. We are going to come back in June 6th meeting with the priority work program, with this included in that. So I think it's going to be taken care of at that June 6th meeting, but you're welcome to obviously put it on for a discussion, but it will be coming back for the June 6th as part of the priority work program.
Do you mind waiting till June the 6th? It's only about 3 weeks away, right?
I don't mind, but we need to do it.
Okay, great. Thank you.
There is state legislation in progress now that will be dealing with this issue too.
Okay, City Council reports. Hearing none, this meeting is adjourned.